From beyond the farthest reaches of our galaxy they come. Two brains pulsing with a strange energy. These space brains come to share their love of science fiction movies.
Welcome to Space Brain, the show where we joy-watch science fiction movies and then talk about what was good and what was great. I'm Surrey, and this is Mark.
Great Scott, Surrey! Tonight we're talking about the classic Back to the Future. It's the 1985 classic film written by Bob Gale and Robert Zemeckis, who also directed the film, and this is for episode 20 of Space Brains, so consider this your spoiler warning.
Yeah, if you haven't seen this film, then we probably shouldn't be calling it a classic, but it is. It's been on TV so many times. It's one of my favourites. I remember seeing it long ago.
Oh,
but go back and watch it,
yep.
And then you can listen in.
Yeah, definitely. And you should just watch this one, really. Come on.
Yes, I'm a bit surprised if you haven't seen it. I mean, I suppose if you're, born in the past 20 years,
yeah,
it's a pretty old film. It's 1985.
Yeah, 1985.
But
yeah,
it does make regular appearances on TV.
It does,
and
pops up, I think, on some of the streaming services and stuff like that. So, as we said, Back to the Future 3 is on Netflix, not the others, which does put a big question mark over my head on how they've acquired that one, but not the other two.
Who just watches number 3 in a trilogy? Like?
I don't know. But then you were saying you kept watching number 3 on was it Christmas Day or Boxing Day or something?
Yeah, for a few years there.
It was just on TV.
Where my parents would come over and visit, we would find ourselves, there's about 4 years in a row, where my dad and I would find ourselves watching TV, talking, and it would just be Back to the Future 3 would come on. And okay.
So you just have it going.
It sort of became a bit of a tradition there for a few years.
A Christmas tradition. There you go. So what was your number one takeaway from Back to the Future? Sorry.
Number one takeaway is that photographs are the ultimate timekeeping device.
They are, aren't they? According to this
great. Well, see, photographs are also used in many movies for taking photographs of ghosts somehow.
Yep.
I don't know how ghosts appear on photos better than they appear, I know, to your eyes.
Those white orbs.
Yeah, but then also, so to time travelers make use of the photograph to make sure that they're not disappearing.
Yes.
Which is what I've discovered in here. So when I go through time, because I'm sure I will develop a time machine sooner or later, I'm going to use a photo to keep track of everything. Yeah,
and I wonder if you took the modern day equivalent would be your mobile phone. Like, would you take your mobile phone and this is the thing, someone that maybe hasn't seen this movie that was born in the year 2000 and then 19 now, and then they would be like, oh, why is he looking at that photo like that? It should be on a phone. Yeah. Would you take your phone back in time? And
Do kids these days have hard printout photos?
They really...
Maybe just if their nana gives it to them.
Yeah.
With my mother-in-law, my kid's nana,
but
she prints out photos.
I mean, technically, your phone, according to the rules of Back to the Future, if you had your phone, if Marty had a phone on him and he went back in time, it would work. It just wouldn't work as in being able to ring people, but the device would still work. So if you had your photo on the phone, it would still work, wouldn't it?
Yes.
So that would be the modern day version of Back to the Future.
The time travel magic would still operate.
Well, because the DeLorean is a machine and that travels back in time, still works back in that time.
Well,
so.
It failed a number of times.
It does fail. But that's the charm of it.
That's just realism.
Yeah, that is.
Yeah, so tell us, what is, roughly speaking, this peculiar time travel movie about?
Oh, hang on, you're jumping ahead. What about, time question that we ask every time?
Well, that's okay. I can just edit this back in time.
Blah, blah, blah.
Okay, so my number one takeaway is that photographs are great timekeeping devices. But is this a hope, a warning, or an experiment?
I'm putting it under a warning because it is essentially a warning about if you mess with time travel, you're guaranteed to change the future. So if you go back and change anything in your life, And this is a conundrum with time travel, isn't it? I'm not sure what you're talking about later with the sciencey stuff, but if you do anything in the past, that it's that ripple effect. It's that butterfly flaps its wings thing.
It's also the paradox of that if you go back in the past, then that must have happened.
Yes.
So how could you change anything?
Yeah.
But then if you do change something, what is the outcome of that?
It has to have another change, doesn't it?
Who knows? It's
the chicken and the egg thing.
It turns your brain into spaghetti.
It does. But so I didn't go that far. I didn't go that deep with this movie, but I did look at just the idea that, Marty goes back and he does mess with the future. And of course, like you just said, the photo proves that he's messed with the future to the point that his family's disappearing. His existence will disappear. And so he has to kind of fix that. But even though he fixes it, there's still ramifications, isn't there, in the future at the end when he goes back again. So yeah, so I see that as a warning. Like when you build your time travel machine, the warning is you're going to go back, you're going to change everything. Yeah, you're going to change space brains. You're going to change everything.
I already have, and I've changed it so that I don't make a time travel machine.
Yeah, that's true. Because it's very true.
Of the terrible dangers of it.
Yeah,
I reckon. Yeah, I was looking more at hope.
Okay.
Because the theme of this film is, you can do anything, you put your mind to it. Also, the thing is, you can change your circumstances. Like, Marty does it more or less literally by changing time.
Yep.
But his dad doesn't change time. His dad is actually living the 1955 timeline.
Yeah.
And alters his circumstances from being someone who's too meek and gets pushed around too much to being someone who is confident and able to hold his own.
Yeah.
But he does that on his own through his own epiphanies.
Yeah.
So that fills me with a bit of hope.
Yeah. Well, he does it. But again, actually, you just cooked my noodle because he does that because Marty changes the past and gives him that sort of push, doesn't he? That he needed.
Yeah.
He always sort of needed, like he never had it in the first version of the time. Yeah,
he never got pushed to the point of.
Oh God, that's just really doing my head in now. I'm just starting to think of everything, like how Marty gets hit by the car, he saves him. If he hadn't have done that, then he wouldn't. Oh my goodness, it's just going to really cook that.
It's the same as the Terminator time travel conundrum, isn't it?
Yeah, as soon as you start messing with it, who knows where
the Terminator was created from the arm of a Terminator that was sent back in time.
Yeah,
and then you go, okay, so hang on, that's just new creation.
Who created it in the first place?
Yeah, no one. It just spontaneously existed.
And because, I recently heard Dr. Carl, someone said that question about the chicken and the egg, and he said, well, yeah, what it is was two birds, and we're talking about birds that are evolutionary from dinosaurs. Two birds got together and they mated, and then from there you had a genetic mutation, which he said, I think he said something like 1 in every 30 human babies has a genetic mutation. So something changes slightly. And it just must have been the magical sense that this genetic mutation gave birth in that egg to a chicken, as we sort of know what a chicken is, so to speak, DNA-wise.
I've long known the answer. The chicken egg is the egg came first.
Yeah.
Because you don't need a chicken to lay a chicken egg.
Right.
You need whatever it is ever so slightly different from a chicken, but would not be identified as a chicken, lays an egg, and from that comes the thing that is just identifiable as a chicken. Because the chickens we have today are quite different from the chickens,
of course,
100 years ago,
even
because we've been breeding them. Yeah.
And all sorts of stuff we do these days to chickens.
Well, don't Google that,
no,
please.
Do not Google that. So what have you been up to? Any time travel, apart from the time travel stuff?
No, I took to editing someone else's book.
That was interesting. Okay. Oh.
So a Facebook friend just basically put up his hand and said, I've written this book. It's a self-help book, guide to making friends, and said, would someone like to have a bit of a read over and give me some feedback? And I went, well, I'd like to be friends.
Yeah.
So I did that. So that was an interesting insight into a different genre and different type of book.
Yep.
And other than that, no, I've been reading this fantastic book called The Innovator's Dilemma, which it's about how disruptive innovations basically overtake markets and bring large established companies undone. So, did we talk about Blockbuster and Netflix, or was that someone else I was talking to?
No, we didn't. We haven't talked about those in any
I don't know who I was talking
in-depth
about with
way.
that, but that was a case in point where Netflix came up with this product of DVD delivery.
Yes.
And talked to Blockbuster and said, hey, do you want to buy us or invest? And Blockbuster said, well, none of our customers want delivery, and that's such a small fringe thing, and we can't afford to do it the way we are set up. You've got a losing product.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Netflix went, well, for us, it's sort of working.
Yeah.
And Blockbuster doesn't exist, and Netflix is now one of the biggest entertainment companies on the planet. And so this book sort of addresses, well, how does that sort of thing happen?
Yeah.
And the same things that he goes through the author, Clayton Christensen. He goes through the hard drive industry, the way the original hard drives, the 8-inch drives, and then the 5 1/4-inch drives. Basically, no company manufacturing 8-inch hard drives exists today. 5 1/4-inch drives basically killed them. Same thing has happened to the 5 1/4-inch drive. 3.5-inch drives killed them, and the solid state drives are killing hard drives, discs, and it's the same pattern repeating every time. And these manufacturers, they make huge money. They're making good management decisions, but they're getting toppled by disruptive innovation. And the reason I'm looking at that is because I'm trying to develop Gravity Undone as a business model and as a sort of a product supply.
Yep.
So I'm looking. I've got to be one of these in some way.
You've got to be a disruptor to the market.
And the reason for that is because I don't have enough money to be what's known as a sustainer.
Yeah.
So if someone invested, I don't know, $1 billion into my company, then I could pick up like Disney is doing with its own streaming service.
Yeah.
It's got so much money it can actually just sort of
decide to do that. Yeah.
Join it.
Yeah.
It's in my opinion, it's not a great market move, but it's kind of one they have to do.
They do.
They sort of have to do it in order to maintain their autonomy.
Yeah.
But it's not a great move. If I had enough investment, I could do the same thing and use that part of that market to get income and do other things. But since I clearly do not have $1 billion, I've got a lot less than that. Maybe $1 billion less than that. So I've got to come up with this product which is cheap and relatively easy for me to produce, and is interesting to a market that is not a target of these large companies, because that's how it starts off. They start off targeting customers that Netflix is not interested in, Disney's not interested in these customers, whatever that is. Get a bit of a toehold there and use that market basically to improve my product until it basically out improves the big guys. Yeah. And that's what happens is at some point, whatever this product this business I'm going to have is going to become faster and better at developing whatever it is doing than, for example, Netflix or Disney or someone else. Even with all their money, they'll try to do it, but their accountants will basically look at it and say, that's way too expensive and there's no money in it.
Yep.
Because they're saying, you'll only make $200,000 a year out of that. And Disney will go, well, I sneeze $200,000. Whereas me, I'm going, I'm making $200,000 a year out of this. Woo!
Yeah,
that's really cool.
Yeah.
So I'm really cool with it. All the big guys are going, it's too little.
Yeah.
But then there's a tipping point, assuming you've done it right, where suddenly you have this explosive growth and it's too late. But this is why you hear about these companies like Instagram and so forth being bought out.
That's right.
Because just as they start hitting that tipping point, there's people in Google and Apple and Amazon watching for this. And so if they see someone starting to hit that tipping point where they're going to shoot ahead and build a new market, rather than them trying to come up with a competing product, they just say, well, here's $2 billion, give me yours.
Yeah, that's right.
And then they have the resources and capacity at that point to develop it into something huge.
Yeah, that's right.
So
it's funny, I don't know all the ins and outs of Netflix, but the Netflix guys are in Australia right now, and I heard them talk about this on the radio, where They're in Melbourne for there's the big media conference happening there, filmmakers and producers, the producers conference, and the Netflix guy. The one thing I just wanted to take from that was it was very similar. He said everyone in the industry turned to us, and you're saying Blockbuster, no one would invest in their idea. Yeah. And they just kept going. They were going, well, it is working for us. And, within a few years, look what happened. Blockbuster and all that have gone, like these huge companies went broke. Yeah. And the market collapsed on them, as things changed. But his one thing was, and it's a bit cheesy, but his one thing was like, you never know what idea you've got that could be the next Netflix, could be the next whatever. Like that's what they just had. They just had an idea and they went with it and they kept going with it. And it was a lot of hard work for a long time. But they then exploded and that was it. And he was actually saying a lot of young people just don't go for it. They stop themselves, with these ideas.
Well, absolutely, because one of the hard things, and it's pointed out in this book that I'm reading, which is why I find it so fascinating, is the reason, one of the reasons that big established companies don't do the innovation is because the innovation, the disruptive product is by its nature not fitting within anything you can predict.
Yeah.
So he's talking about in there the hard drive market magazine, which has all of the sales figures and production values and volumes and all the rest of it, and it makes predictions that go, this type of hard drive is going to make this much in sales next year, and so on. And he draws a graph up, so he shows the 5 1/4 and the 8-inch, and I think the 3 1/2. And it shows what was predicted by this magazine and what the actual was. And there's, almost identical. But then there's the 1 1/4 inch drive. And the amount predicted was, little, but the actual amount was huge.
Yeah.
So all the people who were thinking about hard drives had this chain of thought, which was from past and into present. And they can't predict. They go, well, from all we can tell, it's going to be really little. But the problem is that the fact it's a disruptive product means that you can't use past to predict it.
No, not at all.
And that's why it's very difficult to do. So, for example, at the moment, you try and come up with any sort of product, and you ask anyone, how could you do a science fiction and fantasy-based entertainment system or network or website or whatever on the web? And they'd say, well, I suppose you have a free level, which is supported by ads, and then people pay premium to get no ads. And because that's been the dominant business model now for the duration of the internet.
Yeah.
And it's a slight evolution from print and radio and video and TV. But I predict that the next business model that works will not be that.
Yeah.
But it's really hard to come up with because all you can ever think of is, so I get 500,000 people every month coming to consume my product. How do I make money off that, enough money off that to keep producing enough content? Advertisers will pay me a stink load to get access to that.
Yeah.
And and you try and go, no, I'm trying to come up with something better than that, because if that's all you got, you're back to being like a TV channel or something.
That's right.
Some of the other people are bigger and better at it. So it's very interesting topic there, trying to explore and trying to what he says, Clayton. He says that a sustaining technology or an existing market will see a product as a design or a technical problem. It's a matter of performance. Whereas a disruptive technology, to be successful, it's actually a marketing problem. So you have a product which is delivering DVDs, and you think, well, people like to browse walking into a shop, so this has got a deficit. We can't do it. We want to make our shops better. We want to make our organisation of our DVDs on the shelves better.
Yeah.
We want to have a higher quality of, not VHS, we're going to DVD. These sorts of thoughts. Whereas Netflix is going, well, okay, we've got this service. It's not that it sucks, it's that we've got to find the people who want mail order DVDs.
Yeah, that's right.
And they did.
Yeah.
So
it was excellent.
So
the rest is history.
That's what I'm looking at. if you want to know more information about that, you can go on to grabdowndone.net.
Sounds good.
Go to the shop
Take over
link
the world.
and books, and I've got an Amazon link that will affiliate there because it's a fascinating book.
Definitely. Okay, so Marty McFly, 17-year-old boy in 1985. He's in high school and he is accidentally sent 30 years into the past to 1955 by his good friend Doc in the DeLorean when he's trying to escape some terrorists, some Libyan terrorists.
To put that in perspective, that'd be like being sent back to 1990.
Yeah,
which to me, I'm thinking,
yeah,
that's like, okay, I don't have my mobile phone or the internet, but...
And I've got to admit, sorry, I don't know if you had this, and I think this is me getting a bit older, but watching it this time, it was a bit like 85 to 55. Like it didn't... when I was a kid and I saw, I'm like, 1955, oh my God.
Yeah, that's like World War II.
Yeah,
just
these
finished.
people are so different to us, but I had a different perspective this time on that time warp, and you just labelled it then, like, it would be like going back...
Yeah, so if you're a 17-year-old today, you were born in 2002.
Yeah.
And you went back to 1990. So on TV, like, instead of... who's that fellow that they say that's...
It would be 1989, wouldn't it?
Yeah, reruns. Yeah,
yeah,
he makes a joke about the reruns. Yeah. It would be Friends. You'd be watching the one where Joey gets a bracelet or whatever, and you go, oh, this is the one where Joey gets a monkey.
Yeah.
And they go, well, how do you know that? This is the new one. It's like,
I've seen a rerun.
Whereas me, I'm thinking your Friends or maybe it's Seinfeld or something. Like...
And they did have the joke, didn't they? Like, I'll go to TV. Of course, go to TV. We've got two. No one has two TVs,
I watched it on my large screen.
Yeah.
1990, I watched it on my large screen TV.
That's right, yeah.
You've got a large screen TV?
Yeah.
That's so expensive.
So that's the overall, pitch of the film. It's directed by Robert Zemeckis. It's also written by Robert Zemeckis and Bob Gale. And I was watching a little bit of the behind-the-scenes stuff of this film, and Bob Gale, where this story came from him, the idea is that he visited his parents and he came across his father's yearbook. And he had the idea of, as a what if, writers have what if ideas. He had the what if you went back to, when you were in high school, you went back to your parents at high school at the same time. That was his what if. And his dad was something like president of student council or something. And he made him really think like he wasn't president of student council. And he thought of the guy that was president of student council for his era. And then his dad, and he kind of had a real like, oh, that'd be weird. Imagine if you went back as a teenager when your parents were high school students. That was his what if. Really interesting, hey? So that was the original kind of concept that Bob Gale came up with. And then he kind of put that together with Zemeckis. So, how does this film start? Sorry.
It starts with ticking clocks.
So symbolic.
Clicking clocks.
Lots of them. A
Ticking
lot of those
clocks. It's good because
those
we know
clocks.
It's cled Back to the Future, and we know it's going to be time travel related. And it starts with lots of clicking tocks. ticking
Clocking,
clocks.
ticks, tocks. Move on.
Clocks going tick-tock.
Yeah, and machines, inventions, and the automatic dog feeding machine.
We go past like some newspaper clippings, and then we see, like toasters going up and down, and we start to get the feeling that whoever lives here hasn't been here for a little while.
Yeah,
the toast is burnt, it's been cooked a few times.
Yep.
The dog food is emptied out into a bowl overflowing with dog food.
Yeah.
And dropped into a can full of dog food cans.
Yeah.
And then the door opens, and in walks someone we don't know. Actually, we don't see the face. It's just his feet.
Yep.
And a school bag and a skateboard.
Yep.
I remember watching, thinking, "Oh, that skateboard's so cool."
Yeah, it was so cool, eh?
And he walks in, and you're just seeing his hands turning dials and flipping switches, and a buzz and a hum goes right up, until finally it's revealed as this young guy, dare I say, a kid, but he's one of these indeterminate age, clearly young, but he's not like a little kid.
No, he's a teenager.
But
I think a teenager.
It's one of these. He's an American.
Yeah,
teenager.
he's an American teenage kid.
How old was old Michael J. Fox?
I believe he was 22, but that's fine for Michael J. Fox. This is what
he was a
This was his
youthful
career.
looking.
Yeah.
And he's got a guitar. It's a cute little travel guitar, which I never noticed before.
No.
I only remember the guitar at the end, but this little one, it's just got little body, so it's like a full size neck, but it's got a little body, so it's a travel guitar. It's something you can put in a backpack. For instance.
Yep.
And then he strums it, and it goes blam. This huge speaker explodes out, and he gets thrown across the room, and it all falls down. And that's kind of little introduction. This is not a terribly serious movie.
Yeah.
And
Comedy involved.
And the main character here is into rock and roll. Clearly,
Yep.
likes his guitar loud. And then a big alarm goes off. It's actually the phone ringing.
Yep.
And there's an exasperated or an excited sounding guy on the other end. Marty, you've got to come meet me at 1:15 in the morning at the Twin Pines Mall. Something to that effect. And
he does.
Yeah, he goes, yeah, okay. We have the beautiful.
It's Doc. He says,
Doc.
yeah, Doc.
Yeah, Doc, yeah. But we've got this great thing when the alarm goes off, it's 8 o'clock and everything is, oh, is that all my clocks? Oh, my experiments worked. They're all exactly 25 minutes slow. And, of course, Marty realizes he's late for school.
He's late for school.
Which I did find that very funny that...
From there we have, so Marty rushes off, skateboarding, Walkman, and really the way to describe it, it's like an array of American culture on display. It is so 1980s, but it's like, this is American to the tilt, and you've got to kind of love it. Like they embrace it, like this dude, Marty, he's full blown, like he's on the skateboard, he rolls down, he's got the Walkman, he's got the jacket, he's got the shoes. This is just consumer culture, at its best. And he skateboards down, and what does he do? He grabs onto the back of the truck.
And
there's Burger King, and there's just, it's in your face American
goes past
culture.
The aerobic session where they all got the leg warmers on, the leotards and things.
And even like because he swaps cars. And he then the one guy's like looks around and he's kind of like awkwardly like smiles at him, so he's telling us something about Marty. He's rebellious, he freaked out about running late for school.
He's a bit cheeky.
He's a bit cheeky. And when he gets to school, he runs into cute little teenage girl Jennifer, who warns him, oh, you're late again. So again, like he's a rebel. It's going to be a fourth time. And if Strickland, the principal, sees him, he's going to be in trouble.
Yeah, so, they sneaks around the corner with his girlfriend and they get cornered by Strickland. He's hard and quite intense.
Yeah, he's a bald man.
You're a slacker just like your father was a slacker.
You're lazy.
And I don't know if that's...
And you'll work... He says a line like, you'll amount to nothing, just like your father.
Yeah, I'm not sure if he's trying... Is that supposed to be some sort of reverse psychology to encourage him?
I don't think so. I think the idea in this film is that he's just fucking nasty.
Is that just to crush your student's spirit?
Yes. He doesn't look like a nice principal. He's not doing this for, educational objectives here. He is just a nasty...
Well, the school also looks a little bit run down. It's got sort of scratched on paint and some graffiti in places. And
I really noticed that scene where him and Jennifer walk down, Strickland comes up and catches them. The school is huge and there's no one there. And I know they're all supposed to be in school, but it's a real school, isn't it? It's huge. It's a big hallway, a real empty hallway. And again, Marty's arm around Jennifer's shoulder. He's casually, fourth warning, who cares?
He's too cool.
But I've got to say, don't you just love...
he did care a fair bit because he went charging off to school as fast as he could.
He did, I know. So there's a bit, but, maybe he's getting there for Jennifer more. But I love how Strickland, he gets right in his face. He touches his nose.
Yeah, nose to nose.
It's nose to nose. And that's what I mean. I don't think Strickland is this isn't good teaching 101. This is he's in your face. It's the hard ass, and it's a nice touch that he's basically saying, you're going to be like your dad, who's a loser, It's fantastic. He lets us know that he's going to be trying out for the band.
Strickland tells him, you'll never get into this dance.
Yeah.
He says a dance thing.
Yeah, dance.
Play at the dance or something, but then it's Battle of the Bands we cut to.
Yeah, but they are battling to get to play at the dance.
Oh, okay. Is that what it was?
That's what it was,
okay,
yes.
that makes sense.
So he and his band, and there's a good little bit of comedy there, isn't there? That he kind of walks up to a bunch of real 1980s looking band. Like they've all got long hair and the jackets, but he walks past them, and then it's his band. You know what I mean? And they're called the Pinheads. You know, of all things.
That's quite a peculiar thing, considering he's into Huey Lewis and the News and Van Halen.
But that's what I was going to say. Then he starts rocking out Huey. You know,
he's doing the guitar solo.
Oh God! And that's the thing in this movie. That it just really blew my mind watching it again this time. But yeah, Huey, he's blasts out.
Power of Love.
Power of Love. Yep, thank you. And he's blasting that out, and they stop him. Too loud.
Yeah,
you're too loud for the 1980s. And so he's kicked off, and he's not going to amount to anything.
Yeah, so he leaves there with Jennifer, who encourages him and says, no, they just not have your taste. You know, you should put your demo tape in, though. And we have a little scene where he says, you know, what if I don't like it? What if it's crap? Or maybe I shouldn't do it. I just don't think I could take that sort of rejection.
Yeah.
And this is part of the brilliant writing as it gets reflected later. But, just can't take that sort of rejection. And Jennifer's like, oh, well, you know, maybe... Well, she says, oh, you can do anything you put your mind to it.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Yeah, she says that, yeah. She says, you can do anything if you put your mind to it.
And he actually jokes. He goes, "Oh, geez, I'm sounding like my dad."
Yeah, sounds like
my
dad.
So he's kind of realizing he's got the same negative attitude about his creativity, and maybe he's come from his dad, And so he's like, but he's not jumping out there to do it either.
Yeah, well, this is before
and that's
Act 2,
so good writing that, I reckon.
So this is where we're presented with his flaws and something that he's got to get over. The theme sort of stated, as Blake Snyder would say.
And
we have a wonderful interaction then where they're sitting on the bench and then they're about to get closer.
Yeah, well, I was just going to say, it's like Marty, he's pulling some moves here a bit, isn't he? He's kind of pulling her in a bit.
He keeps sort of putting his hand on her waist and she's like pushing him back.
And he's saying, well, we're going up to the lake tonight.
Yeah.
Or tomorrow, late tonight? Tomorrow night. Yeah, that's right.
But then the charity collector shoves a rattle jar in front of their face and goes, Save the clock tower. Save the clock tower. And you're sort of confronted with this woman saying, it was 30 years ago tonight that the clock tower went down. Or on Saturday or whatever it was.
And the thing is, it's behind them.
Yeah,
it's in the background of them, and it's a burnt out clock tower.
She hands them a pamphlet about it.
Yep.
And then he puts a quarter in and says, there you go, there's a quarter off your trot. She goes off. He's about to get his kiss.
Yeah.
And then Dad turns up.
Bloody
Jennifer's
dad
turns up and goes, Jennifer, come on, get out of here. Enough of the kissing of the boys.
Well, he didn't seem too bad about that, actually.
No,
he just sort of was like, get in the car.
Yeah. Well, I can imagine I'd be the same. It's just sort of like, I'm not going to sit here for another 10 minutes while you smooch.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm not smooching anyone.
That's right.
You wouldn't like it if you had to hang around while I kiss Mum.
Yeah, me and your mother don't smooch anymore. Get in the bloody car.
Come on. You're going to be late.
Yeah, and Marty's peeved off.
Yes, but she writes down and says, I'm not at home. I'm at Grandma's. And this is another bit of wonderful writing here, because then she writes, I love you, and the phone number.
Yep.
And thus he keeps the pamphlet, because now this is an important relic for him.
And can I just say, in so many of these 1980s American movies, the pamphlets are, I've always felt they're like this weird tangible bit of paper. Like it's almost like they're plastic paper or something. I don't know. Maybe it's an American thing. I've never known paper to look like. I feel like I've seen it in a lot of 90 Goonies and horror movies. It's that paper strewn across the street.
They might have a special Hollywood
maybe
paper.
It's a prop paper and that's the thing, but it's just always like, that paper never looks like that. Anyway, that's just my little side note.
There are a lot of things that they use in Hollywood films that aren't ordinary varieties.
That's right, because to make it look better.
Like tissues, for example, in Hollywood movies have to be a little bit firmer and thicker, because the normal tissues are so drapey and there's too many troubles trying to get them to look right.
Yeah.
Yeah, but anyway, so
that's how you make a Hollywood movie, kids.
He pops this, well, what's that Monty Python? Well, we found that strapping a whole bunch of cats. No, that's Simpsons.
Yeah.
Strapping a whole bunch of cats together looks more like a horse. What do you do for horses? Oh, we usually paint cows. What? Yeah, so...
Yeah. So he rocks up to his home now on his skateboard, and he goes into the entrance, and it's the Lion Estates, and it's worn down.
Oh, and there's
there's graffiti. Yeah. It looks dark and dingy and not too, doesn't too invite.
And there's a tow truck pulling a
into
trashed car
into his house. So he lives in the Bogan suburb.
And he's so disappointed because that's obviously the car he's going to take Jennifer on this big night out.
Yeah, and he basically walks into the house with this big burly guy, Biff, yelling at his dad that it wasn't his fault. In fact, but he kind of, in a very comedic way, is letting us know that it was his fault.
He was drink driving.
He was drink driving. He's not going to be paying for it. It's all up to his insurance.
In fact, who's going to get the beer out of his shirt that he spilled when he got hit?
And it's a good introduction to Biff, and of course,
the terrible laugh that his dad has.
Yeah, and he hunches over and everything. So thing, and he does it for the first time, which is so innocuous in this moment, but. When you've watched this film a lot, and when you've seen the sequels as well, like he does that whole "Hello, McFly, hello, McFly," and rubs his head, like gives him a crusty. Oh, I love that. That was so 80s, and it's basically like Biff is bullying him like they're kids in high school.
Yeah,
it literally is. He says to him, "Are you going to do my homework for work?" And I sleep in on a Saturday morning.
And you do these reports. What if they're written in your hand? Or get them retyped?
Yeah, get it. Yeah.
What are you thinking, McFly?
That's right.
Do you want me to get fired?
Yeah. So it's actually a very high school kind of conversation. That's what I picked up on this one.
I also looked at it and I thought, that must be so traumatic for Marty to watch his dad being actively and physically bullied in his house and then unable to do anything. Like, that would really mess a person up, I reckon.
It would.
I'm not surprised that sort of Marty has a few chips on his shoulder.
Yeah, and Marty sort of, he stands there as Biff comes up to him. And again, this is like a character trait that Marty stands up a bit more for himself, and he doesn't, Biff is like, what, like, what are you looking at? I think.
Yeah, Marty stands up and kind of pushes back a bit, but doesn't know where to go from there.
Yeah, it doesn't really.
And he does that throughout this film where he grabs Biff and says, get away from there. Yeah. And then Biff sort of stands up and looks down at him and Marty kind of goes, now what do I do,
So anyway, and Biff leaves, to that tragedy, and he sits down at the dinner table, and he's got his brother, and it looks like his brother works in fast food or something like that.
He's got one of those funny McDonald's style hats,
sort of one of those uniforms,
bright red uniforms.
And his sister's, what's she doing in that bit?
She's got a massive shoulder pad.
She's very 80s.
Massive, comically big, I think.
Yeah, and his mum, Lorraine, is she's a bit overweight, and she's drinking
and smoking heavily.
Yeah. And they also talk about, and Dad is ignoring them and doing that laugh for some old TV show, isn't it?
Yeah, I can't remember what the Jackie Gleason.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what it was. Oh, it's Jackie Gleason's a classic. Whenever an awkward question, what are you going to do about this?
Yeah.
He just sort of looks up and looks back down at his work at Biff's report, I guess.
Yes. And they reveal that the uncle is in jail.
Uncle Joey.
Lorraine's sister is in jail.
Lorraine's brother.
Brother. And also that she kind of has a romantic reminisce moment, Lorraine, doesn't she? And she talks about meeting George, the father, and how they sort of fell in love, that George got hit by Grandpa. And if that had never happened, we probably never would have fell in love.
Yeah, and she was also all about, back in my day, I didn't go parking with boys or calling or chasing doesn't like boys.
Jennifer.
Yeah, it's no good.
Yeah. And George is, as we said, this horrible laugh, and he's distracted.
Yeah, what were you doing there, George? You bird watching? And he looks up for a moment and sort of freezes, and then looks back away and does his little laugh.
Does his little laugh, yeah.
So you realise at that point, probably not bird watching.
And so Marty, this is one of these weird things. Marty is asleep. He awkwardly sleeps.
Yeah, he was. It looked like, because he was in his clothes, it looked like he just basically passed out.
Yeah.
So you can imagine maybe he was up as late as he could before he just got tired.
Yeah, just passed out. This is what teenagers do. And he realises he has to rush to meet... Doc calls, doesn't he? Doc calls, and he has to get to the mall, and he...
Marty, you haven't forgotten, have you? You're meeting me.
So he flows down to where the Twin Pines Mall. And there he finds a
That's
dock.
where the Peabody farm, was it?
Yeah.
Where he wanted to mate pines?
Yes.
Breed pines.
Breed
it
pines.
was, which I don't think that's the right term for it.
No, I don't think
it's
so
propagate is what you do with plants. But
That's too big of a word for a Hollywood movie. Come on.
He wanted to breed pines.
Yeah. So he meets Doc at the mall, and Doc is a crazy crazy looking scientist, isn't he? You know, he's older. He's an older man.
A classic mad scientist with his hair out everywhere, and the way he's talking excitedly and in snatches and fragments.
Yes.
Which don't necessarily join up or answer questions. So Marty says, "What are you doing?" And he just kind of talks on about something else.
Yeah.
We don't actually get any insight here how Marty and Doc
how they got a
came
relationship.
to be together.
And do you know what? Really, I thought about that after watching it, and I mean, does it matter? Do we need to know?
I always imagined, from when I watched this back when I was a youngster, I always imagined Doc was actually worked at the school maybe as a science teacher or something, and or maybe Marty sort of bumped into him while he was doing an experiment in the field while Marty was probably trying to get away from a shitty home life. But clearly Doc had the amplifier and was, I think, building an amplifier was for a guitar.
Yeah.
Because he warned him and said, don't use it, the amplifier's a bit fritzy.
Yeah. But this does tell us, I think this is a bit of a time point of the movie because, again, in the 1980s, it was kind of okay for kids to roam streets and do their own thing and maybe
hang out with weird old men.
The weird old men. I mean, because you can take movies like Dennis the Menace and stuff, you know, like and stories like that, whereas the boy, harked on to the other old man down the street, and that was fine. That was okay. It was okay they had a relationship, whereas, unfortunately, these days we would probably go, why are they together so much?
Dennis the Menace is okay, because one of the red flags that you hear is when it's the grown-up who wants to play with kids.
Yeah. Because
then,
if it's the kids that want to play with the grown-up.
But in Dennis the Menace, clearly, the old man wanted nothing to do with the kid.
Yeah, that's right. So anyway, but I think it probably says something about the time of the film. And
it is interesting
because
it was, I don't ever remember questioning that.
No, I never remember questioning that.
I guess maybe Doc Brown was a bit more of a father figure to him than his father was.
And I guess that's the thing, he is the absent-minded professor, and he's crazy. He, in his own way, he's so invested in the science. He's not interested in any of those other things. Straight away, this character is not dodgy, don't you?
You can tell because of all the clocks and the mechanical bits and pieces. That's his passion.
That's his passion. He's not interested in
He doesn't have one of those weird spider boards with pins with red string connecting dots.
He's purely innocent, Doc. And it's an interesting tidbit that when they auditioned for the role, they said that Christopher Lloyd walked in and they just knew straight away. They were auditioning a whole bunch of actors and they just knew straight away he was Doc. And his approach to Doc was... He came in as a boxer. He wanted to act all out in front of himself. So he'd be... the projection of him as a character was not just like him acting a scene, maybe as the script dictated, but it was that he would be out here like a boxer. Like everything would be in front of him with his hands and all this sort of stuff. But Robert Zemeckis just sort of said when Christopher Lloyd walked in being Doc, they were like, he's Doc. There's no question. He's hired. We're hiring him, And so that's a little tidbit for Doc. And he's so good. He's so good in this. Doc is great, isn't he? You love him.
Oh, yeah. I know. Where he has those little... he'll say, why is everything heavy? And then he sort of looks at his eyes roll around a bit and he goes, of course, something to do with the gravitational field.
He's so, visceral, isn't he? And no wonder. I didn't know that. I watched that again in that bit after the making of after thing that... he does act in front of him. His body is an extension of the role, and it's really out there, he's a clown, he's a boxer, he's an entertainer, but he's a scientist, but it's all animation in front of him,
And exactly how many times in this film does Marty fall over? Almost every scene he trips and falls at least once.
Yeah.
You notice
It's
that?
funny. It's funny, isn't it?
As
Because you
Michael J.
never
Fox.
thought, you would kind of almost pick that up as being a bit... uncoordinated, wouldn't you? But he's not like that as a character.
No, I think it's his enthusiasm as a character.
So the Doc lowers down this, opens up the truck.
Oh, there's a big reveal of a smoke and... and a
Yeah, and this thing's lowering down, and it is a DeLorean.
DeLorean, yes, which
is impressive on its own. I mean, come on, people.
But we only know DeLorean from this movie.
Yeah.
Isn't that interesting?
Well, I think we do. I mean, it was a car in America. But I mean, it was, as a kid, I'd never seen this car in reality.
They've made very few of them. It's a sad story.
So, and apparently they bought 3 for the movie and ripped them apart to make the one. So they ripped up the 3 that were ever made or whatever.
They went through in the trilogy. They went through 6.
Yeah, for this movie they went. Yeah,
they destroyed
3.
1
Yeah.
in number 3 at the end of 3 where it goes off the cliff.
Yeah,
that's actually a DeLorean being destroyed.
So they made them rarer because of this movie. They made them more wanted and then rarer.
Yeah, a good job there.
Yeah.
So it rolls on out, and Doc explains that he has created a time machine. He loads his dog into it, which is kind of a bit callous almost.
Yeah.
Except when you see, and this is the saving grace where you realise Doc isn't callous, because he drives the car directly towards himself.
Yeah.
So confident is he that at 88 miles per hour, and that his calculations will indicate that maybe a metre before him, it will hit 88 miles per hour and jump through time. So that's when you realise he's not actually kind of being mean and testing on a dog. He was doing that as a demonstration for Marty, because they needed a third party. It's like he's showing Marty
that it works.
He can't jump in and do it, because then Marty will be left there for a minute going, what the
hell's going on?
Just killed Doc and he'd wander off.
Yeah, and it's there's a great line there because he says, when this hits 88 kilometers per hour, you're going to see some serious shit. and the car's coming towards
it.
them.
It is 88 miles.
88 miles per hour. Sorry, not kilometers. You are exactly right. Yeah. I actually, when I first watched this just the other day, I was like, did he say kilometers or did he say miles? Like in that first scene, and I was thinking, I wonder if he said kilometers because that's actually the scientifically, correct thing. But because the Americans do miles, so I was like, that is actually kilometers are more. And I was like, have they been smart enough to think he would talk in kilometers? But then later in the movie, it's miles.
Yeah.
So yeah, the car hits 88 miles per hour, sparks fly, and it disappears, leaving behind only these awesome
flaming tires
lines
and the spinning number plate.
That's
ching,
right.
Ching, ching, at a time.
Why would the number plate come off like that? It's a cool visual effect.
And isn't it a nice touch that Doc Brown, he actually got the vanity plate out of time for his time machine? Like really?
Yes. I know, really? Like, really would the Doc go to that much effort? Like, But he does also say to us, look, I figure... You know what? This minute is one of those. It was so good in the way they shot it and they've put it together. I didn't realise, but I've said before, this is really the Pope in the pool scene again. Because in that minute that Einstein is over, he explains it all. Do you know what I mean? Like, within a minute, he explains everything about how it works. And there's a clever, cool line in there as well that he's like, well, I figure if we're going to do time travel, we might as well do it in style. Yeah. Like, why have I picked that car? Like it just kind of explains everything that an audience member go, yeah, but what okay, yeah, all right, I'm along with that, I get it.
And then he pulls out the plutonium.
Yeah, the plutonium.
He says, oh no, it's electric, but you need plutonium, you need something a bit more kick.
Yes.
1.21 gigawatts. so in goes the plutonium, and then we get that again, it's that exposition where he's standing at the case about to get in, he goes, oh, what am I doing? I almost went in without more plutonium. Otherwise, it's a one-way trip.
Yeah, so explaining to us that you need it to get back. Yeah.
And that's when the Libyan terrorists turn up.
The Libyans.
Well, the thing is,
Libyans.
I do remember back in the 80s, Libya was the big deal.
Yeah.
Like, they were the ones who were supposed to be responsible for the, was it 1984 bombing of the aeroplane over Scotland or wherever it was?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Yeah. And so they were like they were one of the bad guys back in the day.
They were the bad guys. And they come around in a Volkswagen. I mean, come on, people.
I just found that a bit peculiar.
I think that's a bit stereotypical. It's like not an American car, this is a European car, and they come in here and they're shooting, and it enables them to shoot from the top. And
because they could have
a slow-moving car, like it wouldn't be as fast.
They could have chosen a Jeep.
Yeah,
because that would likewise have an open top and would be sort of rugged, I guess.
But it'd be American, so...
Yeah, so the Libyans turn up in their Volkswagen, as they do. It's a camper van.
Yeah.
It's got the roof slid open. They corner Doc Brown, and they shoot him.
Yes.
Which is quite harsh.
It is very harsh, yeah.
But, you know...
He gets shot.
He did steal plutonium from terrorists who were going to blow stuff up, so
Yeah.
I'm guessing they don't have any problem with shooting people.
Yeah, and they turn their attentions to Marty. So he jumps in the DeLorean and takes off, and they give chase. And they're tearing around the car park, and then they pull out a bazooka.
Yeah.
So 80s.
I know, that was...
Just the bazooka on the, the shoulder. And so he takes off, and of course, because Doc had sort of said to us about the time machine rules, he'd set it up that it was going to go back to 1955.
Yeah, the day I slipped on the toilet bowl and hit my head
and thought
of the flux capacitor, so I invented time.
So I'm going to go back and watch that again or something.
Well, first one was you go back, see Christ, December 25, 0. I'm pretty sure, even if there was a person called Jesus, December 25, year 0.
I think that's been already disproven.
Anywhere near his birthday.
Yeah. It works, but it works.
It was, but
as a physical sense.
It's an example he's using there.
But him and his absent-mindedness was like, oh, you can go to Christ, and you can... I think, what was the other thing?
November 5, 1955. It was a pivotal moment in science. And then he sort of goes a bit dreaming. That's when I invented the time travel,
the flux capacitor.
Which conveniently is also just a week before the clock tower gets struck.
He does. So it's a great bit of visual storytelling because as Marty is being chased by the Libyans and the bazooka, he hits 88 miles per hour.
We've got a couple
disappears.
false positives though. Yeah. Where it was going up, he shifts up, it goes up,
We did.
He runs out of room, he has to turn. He
turns the car,
because everyone watching is waiting for him to go to 88 miles because we know that's where the story starts. That's what we know is we're going, okay, we know this about time travel. Okay, here's the time travel device and here's the rules of how it works. Yeah. Now make it work. Yeah. And
we want to see what happens.
I think there's twice where he gets closer and closer, and then it slows down. Yeah. And so you're sitting there just going, just bloody hit 88.
But it's good edge of the seat stuff because these guys are chasing. And his car's going fast. He sets a couple of false dawns, and then he's getting closer and closer and closer, and they're like loading the bazooka, and they about to fire it, and he's also about to hit this like film
processing box
in the middle of the car park. These days it'd be like a muzzbuzz.
For all the kids who are unsure of what a film processing place is, it's where you used to take your camera and you'd leave your film for a few hours whilst they put it through a chemical treatment to get
it doesn't basically explain it to a generation that's 19 right now. Anyway, and so I love this because it's just like instantly we go back, he's then in a farmer's field. And he's like tearing through, he hits a scarecrow, and of course we don't see what happened back in 1985. We're just now it's just instant. We're in we're in this farm field and all this sort of stuff.
Well, that's because we're with the camera that was inside the car.
Which is great. I think that's a really good visual metaphor. So he crashes. He's like and he's tearing through this farmyard, and he hits a barn. And he kind of crashes into that.
Yep, smoke pouring out everywhere. Yep. And the Peabody farm family come
they all
in
and
they
open the barn door and they look in and they see this.
What's that, Pa? It looks like a airplane with no wings.
Yeah, and the young boy says, "That ain't no airplane."
And he holds up his
comic book, and it's like an alien ship that looks like the DeLorean. And of course, the DeLorean doors open upwards.
Yeah, there's going doors.
And Marty, in his radioactive suit, hops out, and they're like, ah! Yeah. The farmer attacks with a shotgun, as all farmers have shotguns, and he gets back in the car and fangs it out of there.
Yeah, he shoots on out of there and gets back to Lion Estates.
Yeah.
Which is old neighbourhood, but it's still farms. The gates are just there.
They've just
and there's
been
like
built.
some earth moving equipment just at the start, but it's still farm fields.
Yeah.
So it looks like they're just starting to make this
develop
estate.
this area, yeah.
And he gets there and he stops and goes, okay, I can't go home. It's starting to dawn on him that it's 1955.
Yeah, I think he was still quite confused about it all.
It's dawning on him, though, that he's not in Kansas anymore.
There's something weird where he is.
goes to start the car up again, and it won't start.
Yeah, this is the first time the DeLorean fails.
Evidently, the first lot of DeLoreans were quite prone to not working.
But in this case, I think the flux capacitor kind of turns off.
To be fair, he did just travel 30 years through time.
I mean,
You've got to expect there's going to be a bit of wear and tear on the old engine.
I know. So he wheels the car behind the sign of the line.
Yes, effectively saying, if you lived here, you'd be home by now.
Yeah.
Home in the future.
That's right.
Or something. Oh. Yeah, live in the home in the future. Do
you know what? I didn't really. I've just realised what that means. Yeah. You'd be home by now. You know.
Yeah.
I didn't it didn't twig with me this time. You know, like I'm just
Yeah. So
and then that's it. Clever.
Then
See how clever that is. Everything in this film it means something. You know, like there's not a single thing that doesn't mean something.
And he's got a 3-mile walk into town.
Yeah.
Which he has to walk in. Which means that previously he skateboarded 3 miles. That's like 4.5 kilometres.
That's what he did in the 80s.
4.5 kilometres, that's a long way to drag behind cars. But anyway, that's what he did. Yeah. So he walks into town where we get a look at the 1955.
And the thing is, the town is like, it's clean. It's nice.
Yeah, it's all just like a new built town.
It looks good. And the clock works.
We
get a clear shot of the clock working. And he's picking up that the error is quite different.
Well, he's following the same route that he skateboarded through, and similar things are happening.
But it's different.
So we get the not Enter Sandman. I was going Enter Sandman. Mr. Sandman, Bring Me a Dream sort of song is on, and there's like the record store there. It's got the Ballad of Davy Crockett, I think, which plays later on. And instead of having the re-elect Mayor Goldie van, it's another van saying re-elect Mayor Old White Man. Yeah. And everything's all shiny new. And instead of the Triple X theatre, it's showing Ronald Reagan movie of some sort, which I thought was interesting.
Yep.
Because there's a future reference to Ronald Reagan. Because in 85, Ronald Reagan was in power.
Yeah. And and everyone's wearing different. They clearly look like they're wearing, their costumes are sort of 1950s.
They're on suits and stuff.
Yeah, all the men are in suits.
And where the aerobics was in 85 is actually a cafe.
Yeah,
or a milk
bar. And a man dumps a paper and he picks it up and it says November 5, 1955. Yeah.
Yeah, so he goes into the milk bar.
He does.
To get a phone. He says, "Where's your phone?"
Yep.
And he goes...
Looks up Doc.
Looks up Emmett Brown.
Yeah.
And tries to call.
Yeah, and the phone rings out.
Yeah, so he rips the paper out and he comes out. And then we get this funny thing. He says, "Hey, boy, you're going to buy something here?" I thought it was pretty ballsy of him. Rip the page out and he's holding it in front of the guy. Like, if I was a shopkeeper, I'd be like,
"Hey, man,
someone else wants to use that. You can't just rip my phone book up." But anyway, he says, give me a tab. I can't give you a tab until... I remember tab.
Yeah.
You don't have tab cola anymore. And he says, Diet Pepsi or whatever it was, a Pepsi free.
Is it Pepsi free? He says, you got to pay.
Yeah, you got to pay for it. So, something without sugar. Gives him a coffee.
Gives him a coffee.
A black coffee. Yeah. For which I think it was 5 cents was the price.
Yeah.
Could you imagine?
No, 5 cents.
Yeah, lucky the guy didn't look at the coin too hard. It would have gone, manufactured 1982.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he has his coffee, and then we hear this, and McFly. And so Marty looks around, but then the guy sitting next to him looks around.
Yeah. And it's George, his dad.
It's George, and then we see this
teenage boy.
We see this same scene that he saw at home repeated, where it's homework. You're going to do my homework. I'm going to get it done. I'll give it to you first thing tomorrow morning. Yeah. I sleep in on Sunday.
Yeah.
And hilarity ensues in that sense there.
And he's baffled, isn't he, Marty? He's kind of like, oh my, he's like, it's like he is looking at something weird, like it's abstract to his reality,
He's freaking out. And he's just like staring at his dad, George. Yeah. And then Goldie Wilson, is that his name?
Yeah.
The
cook.
Yeah, or the busboy or whatever they're called in the sort of. He was the mayor.
Yeah.
He goes on and gives him a speech. You can do anything you put your mind to it. Me, I'm out of here and doing this other thing. Yeah, you'll be mayor. Yeah, mayor.
I should be mayor.
Mayor. Yeah, and then his dad takes off.
There is the connection because this is back to what we're saying with cooking our noodles over this because
Yes.
then back in 1985, he is the mayor.
Yeah, he's looking for re-election, so he was...
So did he just cause that always? Did this always happen?
Is that the way it always happened? Or when did he otherwise get... Or now that he got inspired at this time, does it mean he doesn't become...
When he goes out to 1985, is he no longer mayor? Is he inspired? Is he someone else? Oh my goodness.
Maybe he's president.
They never answered that question.
Yeah, so anyway...
So if Zemeckis is out there and listening, he should tweet us or send us some information about this via
I'm
Facebook.
catching up with him next week for
Okay,
coffee.
good. Or Bob Gale, they could let us know.
He does
what
keep
they
cancelling,
think.
but...
Okay.
Oh, you actually... No, he's not... It's not so much that he's cancelling, it's just that is the police department keeps telling me that I'm not allowed within 500 metres of him. But
okay, I'll give it a go then. I'll call these
close,
people. I'll get my people to call these people, sorry.
Walt will call up.
And anyway, so when he turns around, his dad's gone after this commotion, and he rides by on a bike, so he chases after him, and he does catch up on his bike. He sees that it's out in the suburbs now, and he's looking for his dad, and he notices he's up the tree, and he's got binoculars, and he kind of takes it all in, Marty, and then he's like,
bird watching, but he looks across the street.
He sees that he's looking at a young girl through the window, and he's like, "Dad, you're a pervert."
Peeping Tom.
And when he said that, he's kind of disturbed George, and George scrambles down and kind of falls out of the tree and grabs his bike onto the road. And this time, whereas we know that he should have got hit by the car, Marty actually is like, "Dad," and pushes him out of the way and gets hit.
Yeah,
and it's a nice little clunk of his head.
Oh,
on the
it
ground.
made me feel a bit off when I heard that clunk.
Yeah, there's
and then he looks up and sees the car, and he lets his head drop, and he goes clunk.
Yeah.
And
you sort of hear the voiceover like, "Bring that boy inside," or whatever, from the grandma. So
he says, "Ma, one of them damn boys jumped out again." So this isn't the first time that he's hit a kid on the road.
And that's perfectly normal.
He says, "No, one of them boys just jumped out of nowhere in front of my car."
Yeah. I keep hitting all these young boys with my big, wide 1950s car.
How many kids has he hit? I don't know.
Again, it tells you the error. In the 1950s, you hit a kid, it's the kid's fault, all right?
He jumped in front of the car.
Jumped in front of the car, officer.
Interesting thing is that that's his grandfather.
Yeah, I know.
That he would have been a war veteran.
Yes.
If not actually actively in the war, but he certainly would have lived through it, because 55 is only 10 years. And if
he's in his 40s.
If Lorraine, his mum, was 17 at that time, then she would have been 7 at the end of the war, so,
Yeah, quite, yeah.
Interesting to think of it. So we cut to the night time where Marty's in bed.
Yeah, and he wakes up.
He wakes up, it's still dark, and...
He's kind of like, Mum.
Yeah, "Oh, you really bumped your head. I had the most terrible dream that I was gone back in time. Oh no, you're right here in 1955. Huh? And turn the light on, and there's his mum, young.
Yeah.
Young and beautiful. It looks a lot like my sister-in-law.
Right.
It's uncanny.
Really?
Yes.
Lea Thompson looks like your sister.
Well, back in 85. I don't know what Lea Thompson looks like now, but...
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just... I was... startled by. I was looking at it going, that's uncanny. When she's wearing the dress under the seat ball, it looked a lot like my sister-in-law's wedding dress.
Right.
When she's getting married to my brother-in-law.
Yeah, right.
And I was just like, that's
weird.
It was just, I couldn't stop seeing her.
Yeah.
In that actress.
In that role.
Yes, it was just odd. Very strange.
So she's as he comes to, he kind of realizes that she's hitting on him.
Yeah,
and he has no pants on.
No pants on,
which is really weird. Like, why does he have no pants on?
Yeah,
I think that says more about the mum, doesn't it? There's something there going on. There's a bit of an underbelly joke there.
Starting to learn here that mum, who keeps saying, "Oh, I never park with boys. I never did this. I never called them boys."
She's a little bit of
a firecracker herself.
Yeah, that's right. And but he's also then realizing that he did save his dad. His dad didn't get hit. He never met Lorraine, like in that incident. oh crapper, he's
Yeah, and
done something here. He has to have that.
He goes down to the dinner where he sees little Joey in the playpen, and you better get used to those. Oh, he just loves it in there. We just leave him in there for hours at a time.
It's a good little joke.
It's funny because we never see Joey in the future
no.
when he goes back.
No.
Oh, yeah, you'd be expecting that Joey's not in prison, maybe.
But maybe.
And, like...
Yeah.
Okay, but I was always surprised that you don't sort of see a little scene of someone, waving goodbye, say, yeah, I'll see you guys later. Yeah, see you, Joey. And what the, But no. So we never find out his fate. Maybe he still just goes to prison because he enjoys behind bars.
That's right. That's the joke.
But yeah, Marty is totally freaked out by the fact that he's at his dinner table and his mum wants him to stay the night and squeezes his leg, and he goes, "Nah, I'm out of here." So he runs for it and finds his way to Doc Brown's place, where he knocks on the door, and Doc Brown is a bit weird and sort of lets him in. He's got some weird glowing contraption on his head, and sticks a sucker onto Marty's head and says, "Don't do anything," and then tries to supposedly read his mind, which
he does.
Marty then reveals that he's from the future, the time travel machine. And Doc Brown's, "You know what this means? This doesn't work at all." And he takes this ridiculous thing off his head, and there's all smoke coming out of the power unit. It's quite.
It's a useless piece of machine.
You get the feeling that he's been doing sort of weird science a long time.
Yeah. And he but he doesn't believe Marty to begin with, and Marty has to kind of convince him that he is from the future.
Yeah,
and so he tells him the story of inventing the flux capacitor and falling off the toilet and hitting his head, which itself is such a funny story, isn't it? Like
he was trying to hang a clock on the wall, and that's why he thought of time travel, of course. Because It's almost like a cartoon, isn't it?
It's a total. Because
that's what you see in a cartoon where they're doing something with a clock and they get hit on the head, boom, and their eyes swirl.
That's right.
And then they're in a different time.
You can imagine him doing that, couldn't you? Christopher Lloyd or the Doc. So he does prove him, and so they have to kind of like come up with a plan. And you said it before, like it needs, was it 1.8 gigahertz?
1.21 gigawatts.
Yeah, and he's like, Doc now in 1950 was like, what was I thinking? Like, how can you come up with that much power? Like, and Marty's like, plutonium. He's like, I'm sure in 1985 you can buy plutonium at the grocery store, and which of course you can't. But it's a funny like analogy, isn't it, for like this Doc person understanding like, why did I make it so powerful? And
as if he had a choice.
I know.
Maybe it actually would have required 50 gigawatts, but he
so,
managed to make it down to only 1.21.
Yeah, I know. But it's such a real nice, again, writing and how the actor plays it. Like, there is a genuine difference in these docs, and, because there should be, because there's 30 years, and but it's just so genuine because he's still got very similar traits, but it's like just in that scene alone, it's kind of like, what was I thinking?
Yeah, the difference is, plutonium. Like, oh yes, well the Libyans wanted me to build them a bomb, so I took the plutonium and gave them a casing full of second-hand pinball parts.
Yeah. So it like suits his character, but it was I had a real good laugh then. So they need to concoct a plan, and of course in that scene as well to power the car, but he's got no answer at that moment in time. But he also says to Marty, you need to like stick clear of everything. You can't interfere with anything. And then in that moment, Marty's sort of saying, well, I kind of ran into my parents.
Yes.
And I might have kind of made it that they don't fall in love, And he pulls out the photo, does he? He does. He pulls out the photo because that's what escalates the stakes of the story, doesn't it? And his brother in the photo, and look, I've got to say, I mean, I know you said about the photo, but I remember being a kid, and again, you and I grew up, this was the normality of photos, these pieces of paper, Kodak paper, and it's like his brother was disappearing, or had disappeared.
His head was gone.
Yeah, and it's like, oh my God, special effects 101, this is amazing. How did they get rid of his head?
It also
no Photoshop.
It makes perfect sense.
It does.
Except when you think about it, you go, how is... Okay, I can understand the photo would no longer have his brother in it because the photo was taken without his brother. Although it still doesn't make sense, though, that if his parents didn't get together, it's not like they just wouldn't have the first child, but the second two,
Second two,
worries. And they'd have the exactly same photo, just not without the older brother.
Yeah.
But you could sort of say, okay, so you
but
don't...
It's the mathematical calculation of it.
You could sort of say...
Was it
They could still get back together and have Marty and his sister.
Yeah.
Okay, so...
There's still time.
But this is not that. This is the case where the head is gone.
It has dropped off.
So the photo is slowly unraveling.
Yeah.
Which doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
Well, I guess the thing is, it's kind of like every second they're not together, or every second their destiny is not coming together. Like the longer they're apart, the future then unravels. But it doesn't just. I mean, that's what they're saying.
But wouldn't the piece of paper itself
disappear?
Start disappearing? Because he pulls out the thing and part of the
and his
the
brother
corner
and the paper's gone. Yeah,
actually gone.
Yeah.
But anyways, it's
still very cool.
It's a storytelling device. And it fits with the feeling of the movie.
It does.
You've already accepted that there's this flux capacitor and a DeLorean that can travel through time when it hits 88 miles per hour, powered by plutonium that produces 1.21 gigawatts. A disappearing brother in a photo is the least of your concerns.
Yeah. And I mean, like, when you just said it, like, I was thinking, wouldn't actually Marty disappear first because he'd be like the third child? Like, wouldn't it kind of go the other way? Like, there'd be more plausibility for the first child still? Because say they get together later in life, the first child.
That his older sister is the first. Yeah, but anyway.
But I love it. I love that.
The whole
photo.
point of that photo is to show you that there are genuine stakes and there's a timer. There's a time limit on it.
There is.
Not just...
Now there's like a ticking
because, of
time.
course, he shows Doc the note about... and this is what one of my favourite scenes. There's a number of lots of favourite scenes, but there's one scene that I really didn't appreciate until watching it multiple times, as I have done now, is he says, why... I can't be stuck here for 30 years because it's still saying 1.21 gigawatts, we can't do it.
Yeah.
I can't be stuck here for 30 years. I've got a girlfriend. Look, this is all you need to know about it. And he unwraps everything and shows him the note that says, I love you, and the phone number. But on the other side is the clock tower.
Yes.
And so anyone, if you haven't thought of it already, you're going, oh, that's right, clock tower gets struck by lightning.
Yeah.
And then, of course, that comes up a little bit later.
Yeah.
Doc says, lightning bolt. The only thing that could produce that much power would be a lightning strike. But we never know where that happened. And then Marty goes, yes, we do. And as the audience, we've had enough time where we go, we do.
We do. We know the clock tower gets hit.
But we've got it's the right amount of time. It's not like this whole time you're going, of course, we know it. Come on, you idiots, why aren't you thinking of it? It's more like it's unravels,
taking those steps, Yeah,
as the audience, it unravels maybe a second or two before the characters say it. So you feel smart enough, but you don't feel disappointed in the characters.
That's right,
so it's very well done.
Yeah.
Very well timed.
It is very well timed, isn't it? And so that it sets in motion that, okay, Marty, you're going to go back. You've got to go back to school. You've got to get your parents back together because your future is dependent upon it.
Yeah.
And we've got to wait till Saturday night for the lightning strike, no matter what.
Yeah.
So you've got to fix it before then, and then that will be the only way we can get you back to the future.
And you still actually being alive to go back to the
That's right. So they at school, the thing is they realise pretty quickly that Lorraine, his mum, is head over heels for him. And he's trying to convince George to kind of he introduces George. He tries that once. And it doesn't. She's kind of more interested in him, and George, creeps away, kind of disappears.
And then at lunch,
and then at lunch he tries to get it in. And in here we kind of learn that Biff is trying to get into Lorraine's pants. He's not doing it in
a very nice way.
No, he's a nasty boy.
He's
a dirty boy.
In fact, when you're looking at it now, you're thinking, why is he not in prison?
Yeah.
Because
I'm sure he got away with a little bit of,
I think in 55 there was probably a fair bit more sort of misogyny and male privilege.
So that's probably
where
he got away from it. And he was a big dude, and he was the popular, or he was just the big physical guy. Because I must admit, in that scene, Biff keeps trying to get him. George isn't interested, and Marty stands up, to the situation, and Strickland just kind of watches them. Yeah. Did you notice that? And then someone else throws a paper plate. He's like, "Oi!" You know, like it's like, well, hang on, that kid was just about to like punch out the other kid.
Yeah, there's about to be some real blood,
like
going
real
on
blood in there. Then you know, so I love Biff in that. He's like, "I'm going to cut you a break for being the new kid." like just that one little break from Biff. George isn't interested, and George lets him know. Another good thing in this film is like, did you notice like every time Marty was trying to talk to George, they're always moving. They're always in a rush somewhere. Like George is always rushing somewhere, and Marty's got to like
picking his stuff up.
Like
and
he's always
about to
like
leave,
it's never like we're just going to sit here and have a conversation. Like I'm going somewhere, and you've got to kind of come with me. And I think that's a bit of a visual technique of making it like even getting exposition more interesting, because it's like we're rushing somewhere whether you like it or not. I'm sure I heard something about that, like ER, that TV show. That was like we're always moving around the corridors.
I think it also lets you cut conversations short.
It does, because we're going somewhere.
Real life conversations tend to meander and tend to have a lot more in it. Movie or story conversations tend to be,
if we're going somewhere,
here's the bit of story information you need at this moment.
Yeah, but then I'm hopping in a lift.
Yeah, that is all. Because otherwise, if it was like a normal conversation,
just go on
for like 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah, 20-minute
and
conversation.
There'd be some boring bits.
And you'd work out your situation or whatever it is, and much better if you can have it rushing somewhere, and then a lift door closes, or someone's got to jump in a car, or
that's right.
Biff gets in the way, or something.
So anyway, when he's trying to convince George isn't interested, but he lets him know he's interested in Saturday night. I'm not going to the dance because I'm into sci-fi. So we love George here at Space Brains.
He would be listening to Space Brains.
He would be.
Obviously.
He would be the one of 10 listeners.
And so if you guys are out there thinking you could go out with a girl, you could go out with a boy, or you could sit and listen to Space Brains, you know what to do. Go out with the boy and the girl to listen to Space Brains.
That's right. Get them into Space Brains.
The three of you could be just sitting there, just having a Space Brains thing.
Do not wait for your son of the future to come back in time in a DeLorean and to get you back together with your mum. I mean, jeepers.
Because he will do it. He will do it.
He will do it. He will do it. All right. So he then, there's a great scene where he rocks up in his spaceship, plugs in the guitar.
Plugs in the Walkman.
Plays it on the Walkman.
Yeah.
And puts the headphones on, and George is sleeping in bed, and he calls himself Darth Vader, and he tells him
from the planet Vulcan.
From the planet Vulcan. So he just grabs bits and bobs from sci-fi culture and tells him he must ask her out.
Yes, that's not suspicious at all.
No. So then the next day, George rushing up to Marty. It's the other way around, and he's all disheveled.
Constantly flopping his hair to the side.
His beautiful hair. Crispin Glover's hair in this is so cool. And he's then saying to Marty, "No, like I'm going to do it, but I need your advice." And there's a real nice like opposite here, isn't there? Like a father-son moment, but Marty's the father, and he's like telling him the tricks of
you tell you the stuff that chicks like.
This is the crap that girls like.
This is stuff you just have to say to get girls to like. You don't have to believe it or think it,
which we believe, because he does a bit of it. We saw him schmoozing with Jennifer earlier. So it's at the diner, it's at the milk bar.
Milk bar, yeah.
And all these teenagers are bloody high on milk, aren't they? Have they never had pasteurized milk before in their life? Because they are off their chops on milk, aren't they? In this scene,
they're pretty.
They're
happy.
Dancing, they're happy, they're really loaded up.
It's going, and then George, to get his confidence up, he says, "What's his name? Earl, milk, chocolate," and he takes a big
that's it.
Gulp of it down.
Yeah.
I can't help but think that's kind of a bit of a play there. Cause in '85, I don't know if you had milk bars so much anymore, but
no. The idea was like what people do in bars, like slimy a shot,
Yeah, he slurps down a big gulp of chocolate milk.
And I did notice, like, he really slurps and slammed it on the bench, and it actually sprayed the what is it, milk barman, and he but the milk barman was just like,
it's like, could you imagine you sit there,
imagine a teenage kid spilling chocolate milk.
Okay, here you go, some chocolate milk, like slide it down the bar. But it was a nice little
it was
scene, sort of almost and it's interesting to think that they made this first film without the sequels in mind.
Yeah.
But, of course, number 3, they're in the Wild West.
Yeah.
And there's this similar scene where Marty walks into the bar and orders something or other, and he can't handle it because it's a bit rough.
Yeah.
But it's a reflection of this scene.
Yeah.
But
They do that a lot.
George goes up to Lorraine.
Lorraine, yeah.
And totally muffs it and talks about density instead of destiny, and he doesn't handle it very well.
No. And with that, Biff.
Oh, fucking Biff.
And you just did it then. Marty was like, he rolled the eyes like, I mean, come on. And what does he do? He puts his foot out and trips him over.
Yeah, he just can't help it.
He can't help it. Good odd. And then so Biff has tripped over. He's like, get him, and all these buffoons. Marty pushes them all over in one, real good sort of shoulder charge, and runs out. And there's these kids on
wooden plank scooters.
Aren't they Billy Box scooters or something?
Yeah,
that's the name of them. I just suddenly I remember my mum saying something like that. But they're kind of skateboards with crates on top of them, and of course Marty just kicks the crate off and he goes, "I'll give it back to you." So it's a nice save the cat moment. Yeah, I'm a good guy. I'm going to give you back your skateboard, kid. Don't worry. But I need it. And he takes off skateboarding. And everyone's a bit like, what the
Yeah, they've never seen anything like this before.
And Biff and his mates jump in their car and they terrorise through the town as Marty, slingshots it around that beautiful town centre of this.
Yeah, it does all these tricks, grabbing the back of
grabbing
cars.
the backs of the cars and jumps and, whatever else.
And the sparks flying off the steel as he goes up.
That's it. And anyway, and then the Biff fangs it up behind him, and he's holding onto the car, and then he looks ahead, and he
and Biff is going to murder him.
Yeah, he's going to run him over.
He says, "I'm going to ram him," because there's a truck there, the back of a truck.
Yeah,
and of course, as a kid watching this, I was like, "Oh,
yeah, you thought,
because we know he's not going to do it. It's not going to." But I'm looking at it as an adult, I'm thinking, that's murder. He's hammering this car, and this car weighs a ton and a half or something.
If he hits him, he's dead.
Yeah, Marty is going to be cut in half by this thing.
Yep.
Which really pains. Biff is a really psychotic person. He's very rough with Lorraine, and if George doesn't intervene at the end, Lorraine is not getting out of that unabused.
No, she's
and
toast.
He is gonna murder Marty
at this moment in time.
Oh my goodness me!
But he's not a nice guy. He's the villain. So yeah. And anyway,
but it's not just he's not a nice guy. He's really it's portrayed in a cartoonish way in this movie. But when you really sort of analyse it, you're going, he's actually kind of is a step up from what maybe is needed. But I guess it makes it funnier when the poo falls on him.
So, and that happens in each movie, doesn't it?
Yes,
in the sequels. So
he always gets a cart full of manure or something.
So in this one, he's about to murder Marty. We'll make it a more serious adult film. And Marty realizes last moment and does the best thing ever, which is jumps up onto the bonnet of Biff's car, climbs through them, and they're all like, "What?" And jumps back on, lands back on the skateboard. Yeah. I mean, come on, that is brilliant. And they're all so distracted by that of course they haven't had time to brake. And Biff then, screeches on the brakes and they hit this truck of manure.
Yeah, and it fills the whole car.
It fills them up. They are loaded to the top, And I think Biff then says, I'm going to kill him.
Yeah, I'm going to kill him.
Everyone in that car would have been like, I thought you were just going to kill him.
I thought that was it just then, wasn't it?
That would be the realistic version of those people, those teenage boys would be like, I thought you just tried to do it then.
Yeah, also we're leaving because we're not as committed to that as you are.
Because we all, we'd all be second degree murder there, wouldn't we? I think we would.
We're kind of accomplices.
Anyway, so then Lorraine as well is more in love. There's a great line there, I think they say.
He's a dream or something.
Yeah, and they're like, where did he come from? And she says something like, I don't know, but he is a dream.
He can't help himself.
Which again, really great writing, because all of that is mystical and stuff like that. Anyway, he goes back to Doc's place, and Doc is actually fast forwarding, rewinding the tape of which we know his death is on the tape. And that's what Marty is.
Just prior to his death.
Yeah, so we see that he hasn't been watching it, but there's a nice little tension in that scene that there's almost the impression that and Marty sort of says, look, there's something I've got to say about what happened on the night that I came back. And he's like, no, you can't tell me anything in the future. But there's this sort of moment there, isn't there? There's a bit of tension in that Like maybe has he watched it all or has he watched it? And he does a great thing. I thought you would have liked. Did you like this scene where he's like, "I've built a replica of the town, but I haven't had time to paint it."
Paint it and put it to scale.
When I watched it, I just thought of you. I'm like, that was a great line of the doc. Like, I didn't have time to paint it. Like, I was just like, oh, Surrey would like that. Like,
and put it to scale because it's like the whole enacting of that was just. It was pointless.
It was.
It's like, now you let go of the toy car.
And he puts the car battery onto it. And it just fires up.
Bursts in a flame and drops
it. And he's like, because it sets fire to something in his laboratory.
The real thing won't be so dramatic.
Yeah, but like, I wasn't even... I mean, you know why they did it, because they kind of were saying it's going to be dangerous to do this, right? So yeah, I get it as a visual point, but you're so right. Like, I mean, the car wasn't going 88 kilometers an hour. It's not like, where's it going to go? Like when he built the model and he's going to give it an electric shock, what was the point?
Yeah,
this brilliant man, like why would he even do that?
It demonstrates nicely to the audience.
But it doesn't make actually any sense in terms of him.
It is very good from the story point of view in that it gives you that
like if they don't do this right,
knowledge of
how it should work,
what's going to happen. So
it's really clever
because they just sort of talked about it. So
you got to show the audience, man.
We'll catch the lightning bolt. And you sort of go, okay, how's that going to work? Well, now you know.
Could you just imagine when they made that scene, like Spielberg and Zemeckis, and like just sort of sitting there and laughing like we just laughed, like this is classic. We need to spoon feed the audience what it's going to look like, but this is pretty funny. Like,
and how much of the reaction of the guys was genuine?
Yeah,
like Michael J. Fox and Lloyd, because often developers, directors will tell them, okay, this model car will go down there, and then this sparks will go off, but that's all they're told.
Yeah, and
then of course, maybe they didn't really know what was actually going to happen. They just there'll be some sparks, and sure enough, the whole thing gets sort of burst into flames, and they just ad lib it, roll with it.
Yeah. Like you said in Alien, the classic, they didn't know that it was going to burst out.
Yeah, they knew there was this dramatic scene where the alien would reveal itself, but they didn't know it was going to burst out and the blood was a real spurt.
It's going to actually spray all over us,
So they're all like, ah!
Because Doc does really go, ah! Like in this moment when it lights on fire. And anyway, they've done all that and Lorraine shows up and she asks, there's quite a sexual scene there.
Yeah, he's
because they go
backed
quick
up
hire
and backed up
and I like the DeLorean Doc, because he they go wrap up the DeLorean and he kind of he creeps around the back and he's kind of casually sitting on the car, leaning on the car. Like, I'm Uncle Doc. That's how he's introduced as. And then Marty's kind of not really handling the
and he gets backed into a corner.
But both him and Doc are kind of they don't really know what to say.
It's like when you catch your kids having done something wrong, you sort of walk in and they go, they think they're acting perfectly normal, and you look at you go, what have you guys done?
I think good directing, good acting of that scene, because it was kind of like, this attractive young woman is asking Marty out. I mean, but it's his mum, but it's his mum from the this and you're playing a role
This is the setup for the finale. We've got this new obstacle. So not only has George been incapable of asking her out, but now Marty's going to the dance with her, which is totally wrong.
Yeah, totally wrong.
Totally wrong. But that's cool because the next thing he rocks up to his dad's place, George's place.
And they have a plan.
And he says, oh, come on, Daddy-O. Pip and I, my wife and I, we still use that phrase where she'll say, oh, how you going, Daddy-O?
Yeah. And you know what's nice in that is he's like, so... what are you going to be doing? He's like, oh, we'll be at the dance. He's like, and where am I? And he's like, you and Lorraine will be in the car. And then precisely 9:00, you need to come out. And he's like, and then George is like, yeah, but why? Why will that work? And he's like, he goes, well, because nice girls don't like it when guys take advantage of them. And he's holding a bra. And I never, I've never really noticed
and
that.
Your hands are going to be all over her.
Your hands are going to be all over it. And like Marty's like grabs the bra and throws it. He's like, no. Like, it's such a like clever scene, isn't it? Like when you really watch that like closely, you're like
visually
wow.
demonstrating
like
he's
holding your bra. They don't need to say, oh, you're going to be touching her tits. Like it's just like, oh, you're going to be, I'm going to be doing that. Like I'm just going to.
And it wasn't a little delicate bra.
No, it wasn't. Well, because I would presume that was George's mum's bra. Yeah. So, mature woman, all that sort of stuff. So, yeah, but there was a great little scene that he's like, you will pull him out, punch me in the tummy, and Lorraine, you and Lorraine will be back in love.
Go in and dance and kiss.
Yeah.
And it's happily ever after.
Yeah. And it's nice because in terms of like not wasting any story, the next scene is Marty and Lorraine parking.
Pulling up. And in fact,
he
she
says, would you like to park?
Yeah, it's not the first time I've parked with boys.
Like, that's so cool, isn't it?
And he's like looking at her, and then she pulls out the hip flask. He says, maybe you shouldn't drink so much. Yeah. You sound like my mum.
Yeah, that's right.
And then he goes to have a swig himself.
And she's like lighting up a cigarette.
Cracks up a cigarette. Oh my God, you're smoking too.
Yeah, geez. And I mean, the plan there, which is nice, because the plan was, of course, Marty would be like, mistreating her, but in fact then she's sort of basically mistreating her. She's ripped her top off.
And she jumps him and pushes him back and smooches him and says, strange, it's like kissing my brother.
Yeah. And he says, I know exactly what you mean, And the car door rips open, and him thinking, Marty thinking, okay, here's George. Finally. He took long enough. That was a bit awkward with Mum, but it's Biff and the gang, Then so the tension has raised, hasn't it? It's nice.
Yeah, now we're going.
And he's dragged out of the car, and he's like, I'm going to kill you because of that manure. You know how much the car cost?
$300 to clean it.
And which is nice because it's like at the end he's cleaning cars, as well. And then he looks around, and Lorraine's like, get your hands off him, Get your hands off Calvin Klein, and then you get this kind of voyeuristic shot from Biff down her top.
Yeah.
And Biff is like, woohoo, Lorraine.
Yes.
Well, you and me are going to get something going on now, And she knows it, and he hops in the car, and the other guys all sort of like sink a couple of punches into Marty.
Yeah, and bundle him up.
And but then they're watching him kind of going, well, hang on, she's not, and they're like, he's like, what? You're going to watch? You're going to be... I can't remember the line, but it's like, you're going to be dirty.
This is not a peep show.
This ain't no peep show.
Slams the door shut.
Take him out the back and I'll be there. And they're like, oh, okay, well, yeah, we're all white men. We don't mind. We'll just leave you to rape her. And but this is a PG movie, so it's okay. But, so then Biff starts trying to get his action on. And Marty's ripped away.
Chucked in the back of the car.
In the back of the musician's trunk with the keys. And we kind of cut from that to then George.
Well, you can't miss out where the guy says, what are you doing in my car? He says, it's got nothing to do with you, spook.
Yeah, spook.
And the other guy gets out of the car and says, blows away some smoke and says, who you calling spooked? Yeah. Well, we don't got no trouble with no reefer addicts. Which even back in 85, they're making fun of the whole concept of reefer addicts being dangerous.
Yeah.
Please don't bore me to death with your ridiculous epiphanies about the universe. Oh my God.
Yeah. But there was like a racist moment there, wasn't there?
Yeah.
They all got out, and then all the black musicians got out of the car, and they're like, oh shit,
Yeah, they run off.
Yeah, they run off.
Biff's cohort showing their true colours.
They run away. They should. And Marty's stuck in the trunk, of course, and they can't get him out. And it kind of cuts to then like George realising he should be out there, so he rushes out to the car. And he rips open that door thinking it's going to be Marty. So he's got all the courage in the world. And of course it's Biff.
Get your damn hands off her.
Well, Biff is... Yeah, he says the line. But then he's also like, oh, God, it's Biff.
Yeah.
So he's lost his confidence. And Biff tells him to walk away, doesn't he, I think?
Yeah,
and Lorraine pleads for help. And he's hesitant, because Biff has been the bully and has the power over him. And then he's like, no, Biff. But then Biff comes out and grabs him.
Yeah.
and gets hold of him.
Twists his arm behind his back.
And we have a nice then cut, of course. Then we cut to the musicians are trying to get Marty out of the boot, and they do. And just as they do that, the guitarist cuts his hand.
Oh.
Yeah, he's like, hand. And the boot opens. Marty's like, thanks very much, chucks him the keys and runs off. And then we cut back, and George is, in this arm hold. Lorraine's pleading with Biff, you're going to break his arm. And he kind of just somehow manages up all the gusto.
Because Biff grabs Lorraine's face and pushes her back in the car.
That's right,
and she falls back on his bum.
Yeah.
And so looks startled and disappointed.
Yeah.
That's when George snaps.
He snaps. Finally snaps.
The movie should have been called George Snaps.
Like Ginger snaps.
In a world where Ginger hasn't snapped yet. George.
Well, she hasn't, because it's 1951. Anyway, he clenches his fist and left hooks him.
Yeah, it's a left hook. That's a really weird thing.
Because it's a surprise hit, isn't it?
Yeah, bam.
Comes around, bam, and Biff
spins around once, comically. Because you couldn't have it too, teeth flying out.
None of this violence is too
It's
real
all a bit cartoony.
Yeah.
He spins around once and falls back in the car, and then you can almost imagine stars and birds flapping around his head as he falls off to the ground.
Yeah, and with that, Marty rocks up, and all these people rock up, and they're like, "Who's that? Who's that?"
That's George McFly.
George McFly, and so Marty's like, he's impressed, he's happy, and Lorraine and him walk off as well, towards the dance. And so Marty's relieved. He pulls out the photo.
But it's not got better.
No, his sister has disappeared.
So he runs off to the musicians who are now strapping his hand up and says, you guys have got to finish the dance.
And they're like,
or they won't get on the dance floor and they won't kiss.
Yeah.
And then I'm history. And they say, well, unless you know anyone who can play guitar, we're not going up there.
And there's a nice jump cut.
And there's and then he's just sitting there playing just really boring arpeggio chords to the Earth Angel, Earth Angel. And then partway in there, George and Lorraine look like they're going to kiss.
They're dancing, they're about to kiss.
That redhead, he almost looks like the what was that guy? The from American Pie, the redhead dude.
He does look like
Herminator.
that guy. Yeah, Herminator.
It can't be him because it's like a good 10.
No, it's not him.
20 years.
I wonder
difference.
if the Herminator is kind of
so
like a homage to
that. So some jerk guy
cuts him
him
and
goes, get out of the way, George. Yeah. And George sort of meekly goes away, and then poor old Marty falls back. He can't play, and gets out his
suddenly
picture,
he can't play,
and he's faded almost totally away, and he holds up his hand. You can see his eyes through the hand, because his brother lost his head, but Marty's just fading.
He's fading. Well, because that was always my thing. Is would back in 1985 would they have all been disappearing? But no, I suppose no, because this was 1955.
1985 hasn't happened yet.
No, it hasn't happened yet in this time world. But
and the photo shows the probability of it happening.
Yeah, the probability of it,
which is getting less and less. But then George turns around and says no, and then
he pushes him out of the way, totally out of the way.
Get out of the way.
Kisses her.
Takes her and kisses her.
It's a great, I've always liked this. Marty's erect.
Yeah, he suddenly bounces up.
Bounces up.
Like a vampire rising from his tomb.
He does. And he's playing again, in tune. Yeah. And the picture, they all come back.
Yeah. And now we know that he's solved that issue.
Yeah.
The next issue, of course, is the lightning bolt. But he first of all does, he says...
he's about to leave. And
you got to... How about we do one last
up.
one to really shake things up or something?
Yeah.
What does he say?
Yeah.
Really turn it up a bit or something.
Yeah.
So he goes up and says, this is an oldie, but it's an oldie from where I
come from.
But a goodie. And then he turns back to the band and says, it's a blues.
Yeah.
B.
And try to keep
up. And he plays Johnny Be Good.
Yeah. Chuck Berry song.
And if you actually look at old J. Fox's hands, he's actually playing the notes that he's playing. It's quite...
Yep.
They didn't have a body double there. It's quite good.
No, it's Michael J. Fox doing his best.
And then, of course, because we saw the name was Marvin Berry. And the statues or something funny. He rings up on the phone and says, hey, Chuck, it's your cousin, Marvin Berry. Just in case you hadn't worked out that Chuck Berry. So that sounds you're looking for, and he holds that.
As Michael J. Fox rips it apart.
And then he goes all Van Halen. He's doing like the fret tapping and is squirming on the floor.
The band stops and everyone stops dancing.
Everyone's looking at him going, "What are you doing?"
Yeah.
He says, "Yeah, your kids will really love it."
Yeah.
And then he runs.
It's like, I think the line is, "I guess you were not ready for that, but your kids are going to love it."
It was really nice because this is a great one sub. I suppose the primary story of his parents getting together, seeing that story come to fruition. This is like the little celebration. This is the and then we get a little rock song. It's like, we can all have that little chuckle that this is old fashioned music as far as we're concerned, but for them it's new fashioned music.
But it's also there's another. I completely agree. Sorry, but there's also another thing here which I never ever thought before. It's kind of like Marty getting told again, he's too loud, he's too. There's a repeated message here, isn't there? But I mean, it's not super important, but it's kind of funny that in 1985 he plays Huey in the News, and he's told, no, that's too loud. And then in 1955 he plays Chuck Berry, and it's like, no, we don't get this. He's constantly being told.
Well,
it's
another way to look at it is it's sort of you're maybe 5 years ahead of your time.
Yeah. Yeah,
I don't know when Johnny Be Good came out. It was pretty close. It was in the 50s, 57.
I thought it'd be 50s. Yeah, obviously after 55 because I think they would have made that. They would have realised that. I think.
Yeah, I think
they would have googled that, shouldn't they?
85. Yeah, Jesus.
They would have looked at that. Surely.
Well, it still would have been relatively recent. Yeah. Because you're thinking about music that was released, say, in 2000. We're still. I don't know, Blink-182 or your who are those people Linkin Park. Yeah. These are still songs that get played. Yeah. And people know of them. Yeah, yeah. Well, we know Johnny in the 80s. We knew that song. Yeah. Still know it today, I think. In fact, Judas Priest does a great cover. Okay. That's where I know it from. Anyway, so he rushes then to Doc. So we cut to Doc, and he's prepping. He's getting the cables up, and a policeman says, I love that. Do you have the right paperwork? And as far as I can tell, Doc Brown is bribing him. Yeah, bribes him. Yeah. Yes, of course I do. And he opens up his wallet. There's a great shot of him as he's like, yes, officer, I do. He just, he doesn't do it to camera, but he might as well almost have done it to camera. He walks down, and then Marty's oh, that's because Marty's writing him that letter, isn't he? He's stuffing it in his pocket. And it's a letter about that on the night that I travel back, you die, that you get shot or whatever. Yeah. But it is funny because then in the background we see him opening the wallet. Opening the wallet goes off. Yeah. And we never see anything more, so we presume it. And when he meets up with Doc, he's running late. Doc's like, come on, we're gonna get going. And he says to him, you've got precisely 6 minutes before you have to be at the start line and take off, and he sets that alarm on the dashboard. That's the alarm there. Which is great, because a little ticking clock just to speed up the climax. And then we get the wind suddenly howls through and breaks a branch, which knocks the cable and unplugs it. Yeah. And so now... And at the same time, they're arguing, because Doc's like, I don't want to know the future. And they're arguing over this letter, and he rips it up. And, the wind's howling, the branch breaks, and the cables, and he's like, I've got to go up the top. And he's like, Doc, and he starts, he's like, don't tell me. And he climbs up to the top of the clock tower, and he's lingering out, this thing that, I suppose it's 3 stories high or something, isn't it? Yeah, it's quite high. Fair bit up there. It'd be a deathly fall high enough. We get that, fear reaction where Doc steps out and there's a flash of lightning and he jumps back and goes, ooh. And his foot kind of on the concrete edge, a bit of concrete kind of crumbles, Yeah, but he chucks the rope down. Yeah. Marty ties the cable. He pulls the cable up, and then he says, he's holding these 2 bits, and he goes, "Okay, now Marty, you've got to go. Go. You've got 4 minutes." Yeah, and he's saying, "No, you got to tell you about what's going to happen," and they're yelling at each other, and they're like, "I don't want to hear it." Don't tell me. And they're sort of arguing, and I think. Yeah, you're right. He says the clock strikes. The clock strikes, and that's what kind of he's like, you got to go. And he's like, Marty's angry about it all. So they, flees, and we have this beautiful suspense scene where he's trying to get the cable in, and then he slips, his foot falls, and he's dangling from the clock. In that opening scene with the clocks, I said that there was something I noticed before. There's actually a shot of, I think it might be a Charlie Chaplin, where he's hanging off a clock.
Right, yeah.
So there's a little picture of
okay,
that, and that's
cool.
like a little foreshadowing there because we have that same scene where Doc Brown then is dangling off the arm of the clock.
Yes, yeah.
And I never, of course, you're not going to notice that the first time you watch it.
No.
Yeah, that's a little Easter egg.
That's a little, it is a little visual Easter egg.
So that's in the first sort of 30-second intro as the camera pans through that room. There's little clips of stuff.
Yeah.
And there's all the clocks, and that's one of the clocks is a guy dangling off the hand.
And so Marty gets the DeLorean, takes off down to Doc is painted on the road.
Makes you wonder, though, did Doc Brown have that clock because of the interaction he had with Marty hanging off the clock, and so he saw that clock with the I'm going to get that one.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. Probably not.
Could. But it's all thought out. Sorry. Anyway, so then Marty gets to that big, lovely thing that he's painted over the road, like start here.
Yeah.
And he gets that point, and then we're back to Doc, and it's a bit comical, that whole moment, isn't it? And you're probably right. Like Charlie Chaplin's a good sort of sense of what's going on with the Doc. Like
he finally gets
it's like the cable just won't reach. You know? Like
he finally gets a cable that's dangling off his
centimeters,
foot,
and
he's hanging. He finally gets his feet back and goes
kind of like gets
goes,
it all
goes
together,
to climb it, and it starts maybe like a centimeter away. And he's
just won't click, and he realizes it's like locked under a branch,
and he yanks it too hard and unplugs it from the other end.
Yeah.
There's,
too many plugs, Doc. Too many plugs.
But at the same time, Marty's sitting there struggling to get the car started.
Yeah.
And it's not starting.
Well, before that happens, he goes, wait a minute. I could go back 10 minutes early.
10 minutes. I've got all the time in the world.
Yeah.
But he only does 10 minutes.
Yeah, he only does 10
He could have done like half an hour or a day.
But no, that's not exciting. He just does 10 minutes.
Yeah, 10 minutes.
And so he does the 10-minute thing. So he winds the clock back an extra 10 minutes. Because I can tell the Doc in the future you're about to be shot. Only when there's 10 minutes to go. And then the car, and then you go, the alarm clock goes, but the car won't start.
Yeah, and then he in frustration, he bashes his head on the steering wheel.
He's like, screw it, start, pedal, there's a great bit of tension, he's pedal, and then slams his head and it starts.
I remember watching this the first time where you've got Doc Brown not being able to plug the cables together, and then when he finally plugs it in, it unplugs the other end.
You're like,
and there's Marty
on.
twisting, and he's just going, oh, for crying out loud.
Something work for these people.
This all has to work because that's
Marty
the way the movie's got to end.
Yeah.
But
they really stringed it out, didn't they? In a good way.
So finally Marty gets the car going. He starts hammering it down. Doc then strings the cable over the clock and slides down it.
Flying
Batman
Fox style,
Manages to just at the last minute.
And Marty's getting closer and closer. And in fact, Marty goes, come on, Doc. Like he's that close.
Looks across and sees him. And the Doc plugs it just as the lightning strike happens.
Strikes.
It all works.
Yeah.
Doc goes flying back.
And those beautiful flaming
strikes
wheels
leading towards the cinema.
And we have Doc celebrates, he's very happy about it all.
And it's very nice at the start of number 2, isn't it? The car reappears.
Yeah.
And he goes, what the hell? Yeah, so, but while we're about number 2, I just love that scene in number 2.
Yeah. So he arrives back in 1985. He arrives back,
the car won't start again.
Yeah. And the town's a shithole, and he's like, oh.
And who drives past him?
The Libyans. They go, there's fly past him. And there's the drunk, this is so Americans 1980s, isn't it? Like there's a drunk in the street, a homeless drunk. They're always, it's just symbolic of an American town or city. There's always these drunks.
It's also sort of fallen apart a bit.
Yeah.
We're back to seeing a bit of graffiti about places.
Yeah.
And the cinema's not showing Ronald Reagan wholesome cowboy movies. It's showing XXX.
No,
sex
that's right.
feature.
And we see all that, and Marty's really happy. But the Libyans fly by, and he's like, because the car won't start again. I mean,
he runs.
No wonder the DeLorean's never sold. I mean, come on. Was that the joke in this movie? I never saw it in the behind the scenes, but did they literally go, well, the DeLoreans don't work? Makes a lot of sense.
The funny thing is, though, everyone wanted a DeLorean after this.
I know. So he's pelts it, runs it to the Twin Pines Mall.
We skipped over the part where he ran over one of the pines, and Farmer Peabody's going, you killed my tree, you killed my pine. And there was literally 2 pines. He was going to breed pines. He had literally two pines. And Marty ran one of them over.
Yeah, and that's why it's called Twin Pines.
Yes.
So you do wonder, it was still called Twin Pines? Things changed.
Well, he couldn't breed his pines.
He couldn't breed his pines, so it shouldn't have been called Twin Pines. Anyway, he runs there, and by the time he's gotten there, basically the Doc is getting shot. He comes in at a different angle where we're further back from the shopping centre, and he can see the Libyans stand off with Doc. Bam, bam, Doc is shot.
I do love this opportunity you get in time travel movies of seeing the same scene played from a different viewpoint.
Yeah, and he sees himself like hiding, and then the Libyans shooting at him and him popping back, and we see the car, like a nice wide shot of what that car did, didn't we? The DeLorean, you know, like it fangs it around, goes around the bend. As we said, it was suspenseful the first time through because we were like going, oh, when he gets to 88, he's going. But
this time through, I'm just going, hurry up and disappear so we can go find out what Doc's doing.
But like when he does disappear, the good old Libyans crash with a big explosion into that film processing, or what would be now a Muzbuzz, and they're obviously burnt to death. And he runs over like going, oh, Doc, and he's upset. Obviously, he's too late, and Doc sort of sits up behind him like a bit of a zombie, and he's surprised, and then he looks at him and he's like, he unbuttons his top and he's wearing a bulletproof vest.
And this is a real, particularly Hollywood trope, is that if you get shot in a bulletproof vest, you must rip the shirt open to show the bullets stuck in the bulletproof vest. It's not enough just to go, I'm wearing a bulletproof vest. Right. You've actually got to rip it open and it's always a grip. It's like a relief. Yeah. You can. It's just
thank God I did some.
Look at that. So that all of us can see, it's a bulletproof vest.
That's right. And he says, I don't know if he says much, but then he's like, he pulls out the letter.
Yeah, it's been
sticky tape back together. And he says, what about all that time continuum theory and upsetting the balance? And he's like,
decided to risk it.
Decided to risk it for this. Which was funny. It says everything about Doc. Anyway, so then they're kind of, they're back at Marty's place, and he's saying that Doc is going to go 30 years into the future, and see, he wants to see what that would be like. And he does. He takes off and really rapidly that time, just disappears down the road.
Yes.
There was no real run up.
And Marty
goes into the family home.
Well, we sort of cut then to Marty waking up.
That's right.
In his clothes, in that same awkward...
Huey Lewis is playing.
Yeah, in that awkward pose, and he walks past, he gets up, and
the house
in the background is the Huey Lewis poster.
Yeah.
With Sports, I think is the name of the album.
Yeah. Anyway, he walks out to the living room, and the house is just a bit different. A bit more polished.
He stops and has
a little bit more open.
The living room is like got nice furniture.
Yeah. And then his brother's like in a suit. And his sister's sort of done up a bit.
Sister's talking about the multiple guys that she's kind of friends with, dating.
Yeah.
You don't really know the situation, but clearly she's popular.
Yeah. And the brother's like, he questions the brother, like, what are you doing? He's like, I'm a financial broker.
I always wear the suit into the office.
Yeah, it's the office, yeah. So he's like, and he's like, yeah. And then George and Lorraine come in. And
George
they look different.
Cool.
George is cool.
80s cool. Big glasses. He's got the 80s.
He's got the hair.
Miami Vice sort of
he does.
Shirt, blazer on.
God knows where they'd just been at that time in the morning as well.
I got the feeling they were playing golf.
Okay.
Or something, or tennis. They said something about, you didn't get that shot. So.
And Marty actually says, Mum, you look thin. And she does. She looks thinner and she looks younger and fresher. And she's like, oh, thanks.
Well, it's interesting because earlier in the film, Doc said, you've got to get them together. What do they like doing together? And he says, nothing.
Yeah.
But here we clearly see them. They're coming back, having played, let's say, golf. I think it was golf. Playing golf together. And they've been enjoying it. And they're talking like friends would talk.
Yeah.
As opposed to what they were talking like before, which is just like two people in the same room with kids, as opposed to, like every parent's.
Yeah, that's right. Everyone sort of talks to each other. They don't talk like this. Anyway, and then Marty they ask him about going up to the lake, which was the plan with Jennifer, and he's like, well, the car's crashed, and they freak out a bit. George freaks out. He's like, well, come out and have a look. And Biff is buffering the car.
Buffing the car.
Yeah. And he's got there's a car there behind it saying Biff's cleaning or something, mobile cleaning or something. And he actually says to him,
a thing or two about car cleaning.
Yeah, he says to him, don't short me on a second wax this time. He's like, I've already on the second wax, sir or George or whatever. And he goes, Okay, I'm going to start the second one again. So there's definitely a power
and
play.
Biff's all meek and trying to be pleasing.
And after they come back inside, I think he says to Marty, "Oh yeah, we were in high school together or something." You know, like he just kind of shrugs it off. And then Biff comes running. "Oh, you got a package? You got a package?" You know, which I don't know. Come on, I mean, it's obviously like the bullying has been turned on its head. You almost think he'd be like, "Oh, here's your package," you know. But he doesn't. He comes in all excited. "It's your book. It's your book." They rip it open, and it's a science fiction book that he's written.
And on the cover is clearly someone in a yellow suit, much like Marty had.
Yeah,
so.
yeah.
What was it called? It's like called Star-Crossed Lovers, or Brought Together by Space, or something funny.
Something like that. And he says, "See, you can do anything." He says the same line that Marty had said to him. Yeah. Which is like, you can do anything that you put your mind to. Yeah. And he's confused, and then they're like, "Well, if you know your truck," and then Biff says to him, "Well, yeah, I've already done your truck." Yeah. And this is, the Tonka truck of the 80s for boys,
like Toyota Hilux.
And they go out and like open up the garage.
It was interesting. There's a real big Toyota ad at the start. 1985 year model Toyota. Yeah. And then we see the black Toyota
at the
come
end.
past. Yeah.
So he's like, "All right." And then Jennifer rocks up, and she's all happy and going up to the lake and blah blah blah, and so we're gonna do that, and then Doc flies into the driveway, gets out. He's in a hurry again. See this idea of being in a hurry. Marty, you got to come to the future. And he's like lifts up the rubbish bin.
What happens to me? It's not you. It's your kids.
It's your kids. We're gonna go to the future because your kids need help. And he's stuffing like banana peel and a Coke or Pepsi.
Beer,
Pepsi,
and then he drops
the whole thing in, and banana peels and rubbish and all that sort of stuff, and then hops back in. And he's like, "What about Jennifer? Oh, she can come too," And they get in and they drive down, and Marty says to him the great line. He goes, "Doc, we need more road." Yeah. And Doc says, "Where we're going, we don't need roads." And Back in Time blasts out of the stereo by Huey Lewis and the News, and they fly off and disappear in they come towards us in a flash. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Goosebumps. Like,
that's great. And the Mr. Fusion at the end was a nice touch. A little prop for such a short period of time. Yeah. But it has that look of like a Cambrook. Look, it looks like a home appliance.
Yeah, it does.
Clearly, in 30 years in the future, we've got fusion down to the point where it's just like a home appliance, like you'd get a blender down at the shops.
And so that's what. And again, it makes so much sense for Doc, doesn't it? He's like, he would take something like that and put it on his car.
Well, it's easier
makes
than
so much sense.
Well, you can't get plutonium at the corner's drugstore,
no, that never.
But you
that
can get a Mr. Fusion.
That's right. So that is the plot, and I mean, I got to say, like, that end bit is just like goosebumps. Like, it's just like, oh my goodness.
And that's the end that made everyone demand a sequel. Yeah. It's just everyone's like, what happens with his kids? Yeah. Because they weren't. The sequel wasn't created.
No.
The movie was just supposed to end with that, just kind of a bit of fun.
Yeah, a bit of a hook, Yeah. That it would be never. I mean, this is the thing, isn't it? If you start messing with time, you can time travel. The conundrum, really, Surrey, is, do you ever stop?
Yeah, where do you stop?
Where do you stop? Like, when and where do you stop? Because really, human nature is always about change and movement and evolution. You can't stop. You couldn't stop, could you? No. You'd never be happy.
There's an interesting Isaac Asimov story about that. It's, I can't remember what it's called. Something like the something or other at the end of time. The storyline for that is there's at some point in human history, humans discovered a way of stepping into this other dimension, which is parallel to ours and runs through our time. And they basically have like an elevator which runs up and down this time shaft. Yeah. And if you head down, you go into a past. Head up, you go into a future. And there's people who are tasked, like a public service, are tasked with keeping humanity within some set boundaries. Because they found that if you let humans go without modification, they reach sort of an unstable point and they go extreme and they wipe themselves out. or they wipe something else out, or there's some catastrophe. So these people are basically, as a public service to humanity, travel through time, and they just do little nudges here and there. They've got these people who calculate where to do this, little nudges here and there, just to keep humans within guidelines, so nothing too extreme happens. The interesting thing occurs when, and this is what he's saying, is they've discovered time travel. Where do they stop? They find that they are morally obliged to make sure that humans never get too out of whack.
Balance. Yeah.
The thing is that they find that there's this guy tries to head upstream, really far into the future, because he's not supposed to have he's fallen in love with one of these people, and he's not supposed to. So what they'll do is, like, we're going to meet way off in a different time where it won't matter. But there's a cap, and he can't get past a certain year. What he discovers, of course, is that the people somewhere beyond that year have actually put a cap to stop them from coming and interfering. Because what they found was that humanity, in order to grow, actually needs the wild swings and extremes. And their timeline, they capped it far enough downstream from them that there was enough time that humans nearly got wiped out, they came back, they did all sorts of amazing things. But they believe they've got a better life. So below this year, time-travelling humans messing about. Above that year, they can't. Yeah. Like they've put like a little cap on the time travel.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's just an interesting thing you just reminded me of. It is.
Yeah. And I mean, in that movie, In Time, which is a romantic comedy time travel.
Oh, yeah. I like that one.
Yeah, I like that one. But again, like that, he does that because he can time travel. It's just a personal ability, a genetic.
I know, it's never explained. It's just that the men in that family.
The men in the family have it, which is nice, but so they can do it just instantly. But like, so that's the thing. Like when he's trying to fall in love, with the female character, he does that. He repeats the same thing to try to make it more perfect. And that's what I mean. Like, when would you stop to, if you could time travel, you would kind of probably keep doing things to make them perfect. And I think as humans, it would send you around.
Well, you got those, because how many times you have that situation where you go,
damn it,
in hindsight, you look and go, that was, an opportunity to have done something much better.
Yeah.
So you go back and...
Even little things like, you've probably had it with your wife or kids, and you're just like, oh, damn it, I probably shouldn't have said that, or I should have said this, or...
I wish I'd remembered.
Oh, crap. If only I'd said that, this would have been a totally different night, Like, I've really spun this on a different direction, And so if you had that ability to go into the cupboard and shut the cupboard door and go back a couple of hours, you just would. But what would be the endless loop of that, So, I mean, that's why in that movie, In Time, the rule that you discover during the film is once a kid is born, you can't go back, because otherwise the kid changes.
You get a different child.
You get a different child, which is nice. So it's a nice rule. So, I mean, we've talked a bit about the viewing experience. I mean, this film, here in Australia, it was probably on Channel 10 movie premiere Sunday night, 5 or 6 years in a row.
I'm trying to remember when I watched it.
I saw it so many times on TV. I don't think I'd never saw it at the movies, because 1985, I was only a few years old. But I definitely, that's what I mean. Like, once you get to about 1990, I think this was on TV at least a couple of times a year, this movie.
Yeah, for sure. I certainly watched
We were so limited in Australia with how much releases of movies were on TV. And I don't know if you remember, but there was a long period of time there that Sunday night they used to do premieres. And quite often what they would do is, it would premiere on Channel 10 one year, and then it'd be a premiere on Channel 9 the next year. And they would flip movies, obviously, and it was something to do with the rights or whatever. But, I mean, I saw this movie time and time again. I saw it so many times as a kid.
I suspect I saw it when I was in Canada in 85.
Right.
Not at the cinemas. But I'm trying to think of how I could have done that, because we didn't have a VCR.
Mm. Was it in the hotel thing or something?
Did I go to the neighbour's house? Neighbour's a sort of Napoleon Dynamite-esque 21-year-old guy.
Did he have some sort of a legal copy before the internet,
I don't know. I really cannot remember the first time I watched this, but I've certainly, watched it 87, 88 here in Australia. Watch it with the parents on TV or something. Yeah.
And then, I mean, I probably saw it that half a dozen or even more times on TV here. And then when I was sort of 25, something like that, getting the DVDs and just kind of if you had a crappy day, I'd sort of put it on. It was one of those movies for me that I found I'd always go back to. Because I think that's the thing watching it. And I haven't now watched it for quite some time, like probably 10 years now. But I did watch it quite a bit. You know, it was one of those like, or you know, you're hungover and you kind of like lying on a couch, you just sort of put it on. I watched this a lot.
I got a real feeling watching this on the train. I was wondering, am I going to be bored because I've seen it so many times, or not? And actually, no. It's quite an interesting. Yeah. Like the pace, as you said, that everyone's always moving. There's always stuff going on, and I was able to pay more attention to the way the story was written.
Yeah, me too.
And it enchanted me with the way everything wrapped back around to itself.
Yeah.
And if I was going to talk about reading up some of the history of the writing of this film, the original time machine that they were going to use was going to be a room. Yeah. With like lasers and electric, you know, Tesla coil type things.
Yeah.
You try and think of that, but they realised that that wasn't very interesting. And
they also said in that Back to the Future behind the scenes stuff, they said that, and they also said that then they thought, well, it should be movable, and that they had an idea it should be a fridge.
Yeah, it was going to be a fridge and a nuclear explosion.
Yeah.
Which is oddly enough what Indiana Jones did or something.
Yeah,
funny.
yeah. So there was going to be a fridge, and then they were working off they had the working idea of a fridge, and then they thought that, well, wouldn't it make sense to have a vehicle, like if you went back in time or in the future, like having a vehicle that then you could move around in that time in would make a lot of sense.
I think they also didn't want kids jumping in fridges, like playing in fridges, basically.
Probably doesn't make a lot of sense, does it? No. So, yeah, it is funny, that evolution of the idea of like the machine, you know?
Yeah, it makes so much sense to have it as a car.
It does.
Because, first of all, from a budget point of view, you don't have to invent anything like a new flying thing or anything. You just literally just get a car.
Yeah. And that they joked about that, like, you know, that line that the doc says, oh, you know, I thought we might as well be in style. We might as well do it in style. Like, why the DeLorean? Oh, we might as well do it in style. Yeah. You know, it's like that was them kind of saying, well, we just sort of decided to choose a car.
Yeah, I mean,
like we don't really know. Like,
could have been anything.
Could have been anything. We were thinking of fridge for a while.
The other thing I thought was interesting, they were originally going to have the Return from 1955 powered by a nuclear test blast.
Yeah,
because in the 50s they were doing the test drop bombs. And I can't even... But they didn't have the budget for the locations and things. And I can't even imagine how that movie would go. Like,
no.
Because having the lightning hit the clock tower and that whole scene, it kept everything confined within that little town. And everything was very circular. You know, the characters repeated and were referenced. And you built this whole little world up, which is very self-contained. But how would you have had them go out to a nuclear test range?
Well, they talked about that as an example of something that changed in the script, and they had the script, like that was in the script, was the nuclear explosion. So they were going to make it that Marty, to get that power to go back from 1955, would be somehow conjured from a nuclear explosion. And they were saying, well, there was justification because there was nuclear tests, but it wouldn't be in this town. So he would have had to, which in the script they made it like he'd leave the town and go off to this like desert location to get it. And so they said, that was the original occasion, of the script. And then it was like when they came up with the idea of lightning, they were like, oh, it makes so much more sense. Yes. And Bob Gale said, he goes, sometimes with scripts or stories, you wake up and you have a good idea. And then a week later you go, that's a terrible idea. And then other times you wake up and you go, that's a good idea. And a week later you go, oh, but this is kind of even better.
Yeah.
And he's like, that was one of those examples that was a bad idea, because once we thought of lightning, we could contain it to the town.
Yeah.
He didn't have to leave the town. It made more sense. It centered around, the clock could work, because apparently they had the clock in the beginning, but obviously it wouldn't be as a strong connection at the end that the clock actually sent them
probably
back.
More just like a reference to time travel.
To time, like a broken clock, and it got lightning got hit, so they said it made so much more sense, and then visually it made so much more sense rather than this.
Far more exciting, and the lightning blast. Also, so keeping it contained, keeping the characters still involved, because you could have Doc Brown struggling to get that thing.
That's right.
Whereas there was a nuclear blast, like, I don't know.
All right, go off and get the nuclear blast, like.
Yeah, it's sort of so it's
they
funny the
came
way
to their senses and they made the best.
Yeah, I mean, it was partially budgetary.
Yeah.
They couldn't afford the location, so they had to come up with something new.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's pretty good.
It is good, isn't it? So what about, we have the ladder results for the classics.
Yeah, I don't like actually putting these things in because
I know it's a hard one.
Then I could do something like, do I like Predator more than Alien?
I know.
Or do I like, 2001, it's very slow. I would never put it as the same type of thing as Back to the Future.
Yeah.
Like it has, its qualities are entirely enjoyable a different way. So how could you say one above the other?
I know. You can't really do it.
So
maybe we need to come up with a different bit for the classics.
I have seen Back to the Future.
A periodic table of
more
classics.
than I've seen Alien, similar to Predator, more than Space Odyssey. So that's probably the way I'd put it. Back to the Future and Predator I've seen more often, and therefore they will be at the top of the ladder. Then Alien and Space Odyssey because I've seen 2001 once.
Yeah, that's a fair enough rationale.
So that's as good as I'm going to get.
It's funny because even when I did this, it's like you think, like I think, oh, geez, when we watched Predator, I was so like, ah, like it really like blew my mind how tight it was and how clever the story was and everything, and also like remembering watching it as a kid and watching it now. And I mean, again, like I agree, you can't really compare these classic films. It's really hard to put them as a comparison, because they're just so different and they mean different things as well. But if we're going to do it, I'm going with the 2001 Space Odyssey first, then Back to the Future, then the Predator, then the Alien. But then I think about it, I go, well, the Alien's so good. So I don't know.
It's wonderful.
Hard.
One day
they're all wonderful movies.
One day I'm going to take a stab at writing a screenplay of some sort.
Yeah.
And I will definitely be coming back to these classics and having a look to see the way Predator and Alien and Back to the Future and Space Odyssey, what they all did.
Yeah.
Because it's just well worth... I reckon if you basically copied Predator and changed it around, just change some of the bits, you'd probably still have a good movie.
Yeah, you would.
Okay, best scene, worst scene?
Guitar scene.
Guitar scene. Yeah, I remember as a kid that was just...
Like, it was mind-blowing, yeah. Yeah, as a kid I remember, like, it was a bit creepy and at the same time, like, tense but all cool, like, really cool, you know?
Yeah.
Like, this is a really cool scene. I love the guitar scene. Both him in the hand disappearing and then him doing the Chuck Berry song. Like, I loved all that as a kid.
Yeah, I remember cheering a bit.
Yeah.
When he does when he broke out into the 80s hair metal stuff.
Yep.
And I've got to say the skateboard chase. I remember as a kid watching that going, yeah.
Yeah.
Because it was just so cool. It was so on point for the time.
Yeah.
And because, I've got to say, I think I watched this around that 87, 88. So there was that time where street skating was just starting to show and people were doing tricks.
Yeah.
And of course we didn't have the internet then, so it's only what you saw, little snippets here and there on the news where they'd go and someone or other has done this, here's a short film, like you'd see it on ABC or SBS.
Yeah.
There'd be like a short film of skating. My wife would know the names of the people who did these things. I can't think of them now, but and they're doing these tricks which nowadays every person with skateboard does. But at the time it was like shooting along and they'd jump up onto a handrail and do a rail grind. You sort of go, oh,
how did they do that?
It's so awesome, So the whole skateboarding scene was just kind of like, it was a perfectly timed. And as it's turned out, because sometimes these sorts of sequences date, where whatever it is goes a bit out of fashion, like rollerblades, for example. Any film made in the 90s which featured a rollerblade chase scene, now you're kind of going...
It's a bit cringy. Ooh. Can be very cringy, can't
But skateboarding has come back.
It has.
I mean, it never really went away too much, but it's come back a bit now with the X Games, and we're getting... skate parks are being done up and revitalised.
Yeah.
And I think it's because the people who were into skating in the 80s and the 90s are now grown up and have kids. They're in the same situation as my wife and I.
Yeah.
We're skate collecting now because, we sort of liked it when we were younger, but now we can afford to buy skateboards because, $300 for a skateboard, it's like, what?
Yeah.
Kids can't afford that, but, I can do that for my birthday.
Yeah.
And we want our kids to be introduced to this as well. So I think that's why it's come back. But, that's just a great scene.
Yeah, definitely. I love that. I mean, that's what we said before with the plot. Like, when he jumps over the car, and then lands back on the skateboard.
That's the cool thing, because it could have just been, he runs over the car and jumps and lands in the bushes.
Yeah.
But no, he lands perfectly on a skateboard and then slides to a stop.
There's a lot of like those cool moments in this film, like even at way back at the start, the fact that he like rushes to school, like he puts the Walkman on and puts the skate, and then like clings to the back of a truck, like like, there's these little moments in this film, and as I said, some of those things with Doc, the way Doc kind of reacts to things, like there's a lot of there's a lot of like real cool little moments in this film, so they're great scenes. What about the science? What do you want to pick on?
Oh, geez, I know. Well, a couple of things. One, gigawatt, that actually is an acceptable pronunciation of gigawatt.
Okay.
And it was pronounced gigawatt because their science advisor pronounced it gigawatt.
Right.
So you see they're going here 1.21 gigawatts, and then Marty says, what the hell's a gigawatt? And we're all thinking, what is a gigawatt? Like, was it?
Sounds big,
but the science advisor, that's how he pronounced it.
Right.
And evidently it's an alternate pronunciation and is accepted in, you go look it up in the dictionary for gigawatt. And lightning bolts average about 10 gigawatts, sometimes up to 500 terawatts, which is like, 500,000 times more powerful. But so 1.21 gigawatts from a lightning bolt.
Would be reasonable. Yep.
The problem with lightning bolts, of course, and maybe this isn't a problem for the time travel thing, is they have so much power because it's voltage released over such a very short, like milliseconds.
Yeah.
The actual amount of current flow is quite small. You'd be able to power a light globe for 20 minutes or something, like an hour or something. There's not a lot there.
Yep.
There's just a huge voltage being the potential energy. So because you've got to have enough energy to basically jump from a cloud to the Earth or very close to the Earth, and that could be kilometers.
Yep.
So to get a light electricity to arc across kilometers, you need stupendous amounts of potential. Something along the lines of 10,000 volts per centimeter.
Right. Wow.
So, your taser, they say 50,000 volts or 20,000 volts, and you get little sparks between the little probes. That's because that's the distance is maybe 2-3 centimeters. So, you need about 20 or 30,000 volts to get a spark.
Yeah.
So, you can imagine if it's a kilometer, you've got huge power build-up.
Yeah.
And there's a company that actually put forward the idea of harnessing that for power generation. And they had a small-scale model which worked to light a little light globe using simulation. And they tried to scale up. They couldn't get it to work. But the guy, or the company behind it, sort of said, well, the problem is scaling it economically. Yeah. It's not magic or anything. It's just maths and science. You get enough of these towers spread out and you use the right materials like graphite and things which tend to get a hold of positive charge well. Yep. And you'll be able to capture lightning bolts. You need a big enough capacitor to store it because lightning bolts, as I said, discharge very quickly, and you need to be able to store that power to release it slowly, which means you need these massive supercapacitors. But he said basically that it costs so much, when they're scaling it, it's going to cost so much money to have you would have been better off just, I don't know, putting up a windmill. It's a storm. You got a lot of wind. Put up some windmills. Yeah. I thought that was pretty interesting because I always wondered about that. The DeLorean car itself, very interesting. Yeah. Because it was somewhat revolutionary and rather striking. It had whole pressed stainless steel body panels. They were unpainted. So the idea was you could just press out these panels relatively cheaply. And then you didn't have to finish them. So there was no rust retardant you had to put on there, no painting you had to do, no other polishing or finish, just pressed plate, stick on the car, and they screwed on. So his idea was that if you damaged your car, you didn't bother taking to a panel beater, you just pulled the panel off and put a new one on, and then recycled the panel. Because you just take that stainless steel and chuck it in the furnace and
start again.
Re-smelt it, basically. So DeLorean is the name of the guy. His theory was that the long-term maintenance cost of this car would be low because it was made from a fiberglass shell over a stainless steel backbone with stainless steel panels. It wouldn't... And in the 80s was the classic time for rusted cars. They didn't have the same sort of materials and paints we have now. And so at the time, the idea is basically... And so, in fact, there's still a few thousand DeLoreans left because they don't rust. There's no spare parts, so if you ding a panel, you kind of have trouble. Although there is a company now in Humboldt, Texas, who bought the name DeLorean Motor Company, and they're making replicas and new old parts, as they call them, replicas. So you now can actually get your DeLorean repaired, which is nice. Yeah,
very nice.
And it's because, again, people in our sort of age bracket have fond memories of that movie, basically.
Yeah, the movie does it.
So they're getting these replicas built, which actually have sort of modern electronics in them, so they don't mess up all the time. But they're the genuine article.
Yeah. I know Matthew Riley, that Australian fictional author, who's written a whole bunch of books, really big time fantasy books. And I remember he has a DeLorean, but he's got the money to
I've got to say, I wonder would I like because nowadays it's kind of an ugly car, but in the 80s that was so what cool. Cars got. And I remember the gull wing doors alone make it a cool car.
They do.
You can put gull wings on any car, and it's cool.
Make it cool. Yeah.
So that was great.
I saw that Robert Zemeckis said, like him and Bob Gale, they wanted to focus on the H.G. Wells, the Time Machine, and the theory that they were like plenty of time travel works off traveling through time and space, but they wanted in this idea just to really hyper focus on the concept of time travel, like it's only through time. So if you go from Perth, you're in Perth. Like you can't travel Perth to London and also 30 years back in time. Yeah. So they wanted to really focus, and they talked a lot about the time machine being that was a real, inspiration for them, that it wasn't about going through space at the same time.
Yeah, it's no TARDIS. And that also allows you to have that, it's your personal timeline dealing with.
That's right, yeah.
Which brings relevance, because
it does.
One of the things, say Doctor Who, where he travels about, that's why he has his assistant. Yeah. The assistant is the thing that brings that human touch, that's personal element. There's always personal stories about that assistant.
That's right.
Because Doctor Who is just everywhere and been everywhere at all times.
Yeah.
So he has no...
He becomes godlike, doesn't he?
No personal story in that sense,
and no stakes can't be raised.
But if I was going to make a time movie, and most time movies do end up this way, they do sort of stick to a person's timeline, like that's sort of the relevance of the time travel.
Yep, definitely.
It's good. So let's talk about some filmmaking, because there's some really great shots here. There's one I quite liked. I don't know if you notice it, but there's a lot of camera movement here, which is only just sort of really getting into it in the 80s.
Yep.
He comes up to the Doc Brown's door and he knocks, and then he sort of walks away, and the camera zooms in with him, and then it dollies back as he walks back, and it's really sort of, we're coming and going from this door with Marty.
Yeah.
And I was really paying attention to that, thinking, remembering, like, say, Goonies, about the same sort of time.
Yeah.
Had a
and
much more,
like Indiana Jones,
much more still camera in Goonies with a little bit of movement, but in this it was just constantly moving. Chasing him on the skateboard, coming in for close-up shots of the wheels, zooming back out again. Yeah, there would have been quite a camera rig to shoot that around. No drone shots.
No, there's no drone back in the 80s. Like you said, dollying and tracking is what's going on there, which definitely, see, 60s, 70s, we sort of had those zoom in, zoom outs, and they're just so out of fashion now.
Yeah.
And I think in the 80s, it probably went from zoom in, zoom outs to the dollying and the tracking more. So more the whole camera moves with it. As you said, like we come in with Marty, we go back with Marty, that kind of stuff. I must admit, like me looking at this film, like camera-wise, I thought, well, there's nothing arty-farty and there's no sort of special cinematography too much going on. But what I really noticed overall was they created a universe. They created this world. Like, and that was done through not only the camera, but it's like the camera, the mise-en-scène, the editing, the sound. Like, it was, they made it this town. You know, they made it Marty's universe.
And I think also by repeating and showing reflections.
Yeah.
So the path he takes to school takes him
the
in
same.
Through and around past the aerobics centre, which then later on he's coming the exact same way in.
It's the same path.
And except now you see it's got like the service station with the full service. They'll come out like a pit stop.
Yeah, that's right.
And the milk bar, which used to be the aerobics centre, you know, like, so you get the feeling like you already know, you almost yourself go, oh yeah, and that was the aerobics centre. Yeah, and that was like, it's your own town.
It is. And I think they did that, and extension to that, like, I completely agree with that, but even like George's place, they you're right, like the tracking, like George and Marty, when they're discussing that plan, it kind of tracks backwards, and it's this really big old 1950s, you know, like we would say quarter acre block in Australia, but it's, you know, whatever they called it in America at the time, but it's this really big, but it kind of comes back around the back of the house, and they're doing the washing, and you see the back of the house. Same when you know, George is, you know, bird watching, and you know, falls in the street, and then Marty's put in the way that house is portrayed, and you know, like we're constantly in this world of Back to the Future, and they really created a universe. And like another little trick with the sound, like I keep saying Huey in the News. Well, the thing is, actually, the songs of Huey in the Power of Love, it's in Marty's headphones, but then Marty plays it, but then it's also outside of the world of the world. And that's what there's the difference between non-diegetic sound and diegetic sound.
Yeah.
But when you think about that from a, like, you know, as an audience member, you don't really notice because it's just really subtle. But when you're watching it like we are to analyze, it's like, well, that's playing with the reality of it all, isn't it? Because it's the character can hear it in that moment. The character plays it in another moment, but then in another moment, he's not hearing it. It's outside the world that he is in. And this is what I mean by the universe. Like they kind of, it wasn't just the camera did it, the sound did it, the way they kind of shot it, and the plot points did it, you know, and as you said, like the repetition of the same moments did it, you know, and they, as a bit of a joke, that they were in these same moments in time, you know, and I mean, you and I know in the sequels, they repeat that again, you know, the same things happen time and time again with the same characters, you know, which is quite funny, but it's I just really think that Zemeckis has created a universe through film language, but it's not as simple as just the camera. It's everything, you know. It's the plot, it's the editing, it's the sound, it's the camera, it's that repetition of scenes, and as an audience, you're kind of sucked into it. But when you sit back and look at it, you're like, wow, that's quite clever. Like he's done a lot there, and I think that's why it is. Like as you said before, I've seen this film a lot. Am I going to be bored watching this again? No, I'm actually drawn into it.
I saw new things. Like I noticed a couple of extra features.
There's always something else to notice again.
And I was wondering this time about the relevance of there's a newspaper clipping at the very start which talks about the Emmett Brown house burning down. Yeah. But there's no reference to that through the movie as far as I could tell.
No.
And I was wondering...
Yeah. Well, because Doc does say... does he say this in 1985 or does he say it in... No, he says it in 1985. He says, I've got to... There's something about my inheritance.
Yeah, I spent my entire family
That's
fortune.
Right, on this invention, yeah. So... And then in 1955, he's in a different house, isn't he?
He's got a mansion.
It's like a mansion.
In 85, he lives in basically, well, it was like a garage or something, a storage
in a bit more industrial area, you know?
Yeah, it's just sort of like
because Marty comes out, it's a big barbed wire fence.
some sort of a unit.
Yeah.
Industrial unit or something.
Industrial unit, yeah. So there's the difference, isn't there, between the two worlds? Yeah. Yeah.
And he had a nice car. Back
Yeah.
in 55.
Yes.
It was all that cream colour with the
Yeah.
beautiful hood ornament.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny, isn't it?
But I was keeping an eye out to see if that fire was anywhere in it, but it kind of...
It's not, but
Kind
it's
of
like
not.
it's like it's in his timeline, isn't it? You know?
that's part of his history.
Yeah, yeah. The other thing is, just to pick on something really specific, is like, and we detailed it in the plot, but that final climax, like of Marty and the DeLorean and the doc, plug-in, like what we talked about, not the plugs not reaching and the lightning coming and having to fly and Fox down and Marty not being able to start the car, and then that whole we call that parallel editing. So you got like one bit of action somewhere and you got another bit of action elsewhere, but they all connect. It connects, and so you cut from one to the other and you cut back, chop between the two. And this is probably one of those just like textbook perfect examples of parallel editing, because, and you said it before, which is exactly what Zemeckis would have wanted. It's like, as an audience, being like, come on, like almost like that old attitude of going to the cinema and people like yelling at the screen, like come on, cut them a break, and it's just one thing after another not quite working. But the editing between what's going on over here, but they connect. And as an audience, like the tension builds because you're waiting for them to, are they going to get there? Is it going to make it? So there's some films don't get to that point. This film does it. There was a recent film, not sci-fi, the Ben Affleck Argo movie. Yeah. About the Iranian hostage, and that does it really well at the end as well, where you've got they're trying to get out of the airport, and it's sort of like one thing after another of them not kind of getting through the checkpoints. And then at the same time, back in America, they're kind of like, the plan's been cancelled, we're not supporting his plan. And then it goes back and there's like, they get through a checkpoint at the airport and then it goes back to America. It's like, well, we've got to give them the tickets, and Bryan Cranston's right, we're going to get the tickets back on. They're like, so there's a good example of parallel editing, and the tension sort of ticks towards whether are they going to get on the plane and get out of the country, And this is really the perfect example of parallel editing, and it doesn't happen a lot. So it's really cool. And it's why you feel then when that works, you're like, ah.
Yeah.
It's climax.
It does really well, that plot shape where you build up tension and then you get like a small...
You get a relief.
Yeah. Victory. And then there's, oh no, now it's worse. Yeah. And then another bit of a victory. Yeah. Oh no, it's really bad. Yeah. And then you finally get the trailing off, like it doesn't, because you got that playing Johnny Be Good. Yeah. I remember feeling, because you feel so good then, like, yes, they kissed, he's okay, and he's playing this cool song, he finally gets to play, because he was afraid he was never going to get to play in front of people.
That's right, yeah.
And he got to play in front of people, and then he was like, yeah, your kids will love it type of thing. Yeah. So you're feeling, yeah, that's really, woohoo. And then you get back to the series where he starts.
They still got to get back to the future.
Getting that tension back up again. And then zap, the lightning hits and he comes, yes, he's in 1985. And you're sort of seeing how crap it actually is there. Like with there's none of the nice painting and some of the stuff's closed down. There's
the XXX cinema.
There's a XXX cinema there instead of a normal one. And sorry for anyone who owns a XXX cinema out there. You're doing good work. I'm sure that's Pee Wee Herman would just come anyway. Yeah, and so you sort of get that, but then his car won't start, so that starts tensioning up again, and he gets back to he has to run, and so he doesn't make it in time, and then you're going, did Doc die? And then you get that slow releases. No, he didn't die. He's back home. He's improved life, and everything's going well. And then Doc comes back and goes, "We got to go." And there's it's a little uptick at the end there. Yeah. So it's very well done. Sometimes people overdo it, where there's too much of a release, and then you kind of don't care too much about the actual final. Yeah. Or worse, there's not enough, and so it's like you get to the end, you go, "I just sat through an hour and a half." Yeah. That was what's that mountain? Cold Mountain. I think it was. So it's like, oh gosh, that pissed me off. Yeah, it's a perfect example of I don't think
twist,
they got it
twist,
right.
twist, twist, and then...
Yeah, like, so the main character is this dude separated from his wife due to the Civil War in America. And so we're doing parallel stuff. So we're going, what hardships and small victories his wife gets. So she's clearly leading a different life. And then he's like, just barely surviving. And then he gets caught and he drags himself. We watched 2 hours of him basically being dragged through hell. And nearly dying and being crippled so many times. And his wife then, her living situation as he's spent longer and longer away at war and no word, is getting worse and worse. Is like this, she's going to have to marry the landowner or something or other who is just not being good.
Yeah.
And he finally gets home and yes, but there's this this final confrontation with like this bad dude, like, and you're expecting it'll be tough, but he'll win and they'll be back and it's all okay. No, he gets shot in the stomach and he dies slowly. And he just at the end of the movie, I'm just like, so sorry if anyone hasn't watched that, don't watch it, terrible. I was just like, I just got, my tension ratcheted up and my emotions screwed for 2 hours. So this guy dies slowly and painfully from a gut shot in the wilderness in his wife's arms, who'd been waiting the whole time, and her life is not any better. And the supposed happy ending, as it were, or the benefit you get, is that for the short period that he did return, she got pregnant. So now she's pregnant alone on her own in this harsh will. Jesus Christ!
Screwdriver.
That's doing it too wrong.
Yeah,
there's no payoff at the end where you felt you could breathe out. The whole thing, you just look back and you go, "There's 2 hours of my life I don't get back."
Yeah.
Well, I didn't enjoy that in the slightest. So it's it's terrible. But
Well,
this movie,
yeah.
at the end, you go, "Oh, that's actually really good."
Yeah, and I mean, that does go to kind of like Robert McKee's, another expert like Blake Schneider, that idea that he sort of says, like, you have a scene that at the start it goes from positive emotion to negative, and then the next scene should really go a negative to a positive.
Yeah.
And they back up to each other. Blake Schneider has always said, like, a scene should go positive, negative, or negative, positive, but it's a bit hard to always, like, do it scene after scene after scene, But I think, actually, that when you were just saying all that, I was like, Back to the Future does really do that. Like, it does, like, every scene is sort of like positive to negative, negative to positive. There's a build-up. There's either success for Marty or then not success. It's just constantly like that.
Like, George comes back and says, Darth Vader told me I have to ask
so
her
I'm going to
out.
go do it.
So,
and
yes,
then,
okay.
And then, like, tells him what to do, and it's like, we're going to have a win.
And he goes up, and then Biff comes
in.
and you go,
Yeah.
But then that ends with Biff getting covered in manure.
Yeah,
and you
so
go,
it's positive, but then Lorraine is now more in love with him.
Yeah.
So it's negative.
Yeah,
And then he goes to Doc, and Doc's got the, the crazy plan, but then Lorraine shows up and asks him to the dance.
Yeah.
It's like, so it's like constantly that positive to negative, positive to negative, yeah. So it's really clever, isn't it? And that's a big technicality strength of this film, is the plot. So if you are out there listening, let us know what you thought about the plot of Back to the Future or any other filmic
and
parts.
any of your, because I know there's a lot of sort of, they call fan theories as we know them.
Yep.
About how various aspects of this, how Doc Brown actually knew to wear the bulletproof vest. There's other sort of hints about what his actual history is, because we don't really know. We know his mansion got burnt down.
Yep.
Possibly.
Yep, but we don't know. We don't really learn much more about
and we
that.
don't really know how they met. But I know that there are people who have ideas. So get in touch.
Get in touch. Let us know.
You can get us on Twitter or Instagram, which is at SpaceBrainsPod on Twitter, at SpaceBrainsPodcast on Instagram and Facebook.
Yep.
You can email spacebrains@gravityundone.net if you like.
Sounds good. And I think we need to get Robert Zemeckis on the phone here. So
yeah, let's get him on the phone.
I think let's try to get him on the phone. I'm going to try to get my people in touch with his people.
Yeah.
I'm going to go, you know what? I'm going to go back in time to 1985 or 1984 when they were developing this and work on the film set with him.
Yeah,
that's
okay.
what I'm doing.
Next time I watch the movie, I'll keep an eye out for you.
Yeah, keep an eye. I'll be in that milk bar having a good old time.
Yeah, dancing. Okay.
Okay, so that was episode 20 of Space Brains, and I believe, what are we going to be looking at for episode 21?
A Korean movie.
Oh, okay.
I was thinking about Demolition Man.
Yeah, which we should do.
We will
We'll definitely do Demolition Man.
Old Stallone, He's quite
Because I do like Demolition Man, so... But yeah, let us know what you thought about the podcast as well. Hit us up if you have any questions or any feedback or any other ideas or films that you would like us to actually review. Would be great to hear from you, and anything that you thought about Back to the Future, whether you agree with some of the background that we talked about, the plot, what did you think about the filmic elements, favourite scenes, any of those aspects that you can let us know about. And for episode 21...
Hey, did you know that on Netflix is The Host by Andrew Niccol, who did the last movie we did, Anon.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
So someone could watch it, but that's not what I'm talking about.
Okay, we're not going to do that for episode 21. We're not doing The Host, just so you know. So let us know about what you thought about Back to the Future podcast.
It's another Chinese one.
Yeah, awesome.
Shanghai Fortress.
Shanghai Fortress. Okay, sounds good. We did do The Wandering Earth back in, was it episode 14?
Yeah, a couple episodes back. So this
like
Shanghai Fortress, it's on Netflix. It's a 2019 movie. And
Excellent.
It's humans defending Earth against aliens.
Nice.
So that's what we know about it. We'll go in,
Cold.
positive minds,
Yeah, positive minds.
and analyse the goodness out of it.
Yes, we will. Bit of hope punk for everyone out there. All right, thank you very much. Ciao.
See ya.